Oh, Derik is shaking, rubbing his hands together. He's so excited
I'm excited to be here with you fine gentlemen.
because
And
we have not seen you in ages, months,
no,
years,
we
decades.
like I said, I think the last time we really saw each other it was at Gen Con about a month ago. And no, you
Years,
were super busy
decades.
and popular, and being Stephen Glicker, the man of the hour, I was the lowly cave troll. Uh,
Well, when we
exi-
go to Origins, you could be the man of the hour, and I'll be the cave troll.
I did have a cool moment at Gen Con, though, where we got really excited about the Fabula Ultima game. We did a big stream about it, and the game's creator actually came in and to our comments section was telling us about how much he appreciated us talking about the game. And when I went to Gen Con, I went there and I went to their booth to pick up their new supplement, which had just come out in print in English, which is now very hard to get because they sold out at Gen Con. And the guys there were so they saw the shirt and they were like, "Oh, it's Derik from." They're Italian, you know. They're like, "Have a nice last call. Take it," you know. And trying to tell an Italian person, "No, no, it's fine. I'll just pay for it." You know, they once they demand that you take a gift, they're pretty insistent upon it. So that was pretty cool. That like this small independent publisher was like, we really love that you talked about the game, and we didn't pay you or anything like that. You just really liked it, and you clearly are a fan of the genre, and so that was kind of a cool moment. But other than that, I was small man, and Steven was the big man on campus.
Well, what can I say? I know a lot of people at Gen Con,
Sure.
and yeah, I mean Gen Con's my place to be because everyone there is just like everyone goes to it. So and year after year, you just keep meeting new people. I even met some. I'm not going to spoil it, but I made some new, very interesting contacts that might be on the show in a couple of weeks. That I won't get into, but I'll save the story for later. But I met
It'd be
some
fun.
very interesting people, and in fact, next week we'll have someone also from Gen Con who's never been on this show ever before.
Oh,
Ever.
wow.
Never.
From Gen Con. So
Well,
it could be anyone because so many
Live
people go
a
to
month
Gen
later
Con.
from Gen Con, right? Yeah,
live a month later.
There's 65,000 or something, 70,000 that went.
Well, eventually we'll get them all. It's just going to take a couple of decades.
Just take a little while, and by then there'll be more people who went.
Yes. Well, eventually we'll get to everyone.
So I know that we're going to talk about the OneD&D playtest.
Yes.
But as sort of a precursor to that, what we were just discussing before we went live was me being very shocked, surprised to learn that Baldur's Gate 3, which again we'll probably end up drawing some comparisons and conclusions to as it relates to the D&D VTT, was not only the number one game of the year, but is like currently ranked as among the highest rated games of all time. I was
top 10 PC games.
Yeah,
right now.
I was shocked. I mean, going up against luminaries like Half-Life and Grand Theft Auto, and so I was shocked to hear this. And again, I get it. I haven't played the game, but can it really be that good?
It's that good. It's that good. For what it is,
watch
good.
our streams about the techniques that they use, but they get all the details.
It's that good because Larian is insane. And the thing that they did that made it so good, we've done multiple streams on why it's so good, and you could check those out. But one of the main things they did is that at most video games, is that they'll have you do something and they'll have 3 or 4 canned responses of how you talk to the NPCs. But this game has dozens, if not hundreds. They have recorded lines of dialogue for every NPC. You'll be in a camp with 20 people, and you can talk to them, and they all respond back to you.
Is that?
It's just immersive.
That's what I was going to say. Is that what makes the game compelling? Then is that level of, I guess, immersion?
Yes, that's part of it. The part of it is that, and that's actually, if you look at a lot of these very popular games, if you look at I'm thinking Persona 5 is a good example. I'm sure none of you actually Mark might have played it.
I played the other Personas, but not 5 because it only recently came out for the computer.
Unfortunately, I lived for a time with a guy. A guy came and lived with me actually, while he was between apartments in San Francisco, and he would play Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royale or Battle Royale, or whatever,
yes, Royale,
endlessly. And to this day, I still make fun of. I mean, like all the time, 24. It was like never
Well.
stopping. And I would always go up to him and go, what idiot decided I'm going to make a game? I'm going to make a JRPG. And when you select the different options of the menu for your character's turn, it's going to shout them out. Persona, Persona, Persona. And I was like, I cannot stand that name, that game, or anything associated with it.
Anyhow,
Anyways,
Persona 5, masterpiece, by the way, one of the highest rated video games of all time. Another thing Derik hates that I love.
That is
He
accurate.
hates that it shouts out Persona. It doesn't
I
shout out
Persona.
like attack. It doesn't shout out
Persona.
attack or item. It just
Nope.
says Persona.
It does not shout out attack or item. It shouts out Persona. And I'm
Persona.
like,
Well, anyhow,
Persona.
the characters, it really comes down to the characters, the depth, the story, and the personalities. They actually have characters that are all unique, that have wants, needs, likes, dislikes. They conflict with each other. It is a very, very well done game. Plus, the styles are really good, and it really immerses you into the world in ways that other games don't. And I agree. Even the combat, the style of the combat is so freaking good. It's almost style over substance. But it's not. It's style and substance. And if you look at Baldur's Gate 3, it's very similar. They immerse you in the world. They give you infinite numbers of ways to play this game. It feels like it's made for you. Because, like, if you go talk to people, and I've done this, I keep doing this, so it's taking me forever to get through it. I will change my party composition, go talk to people, just to see how it changes the responses, and it does. It does every time. Not only does it change the response, it changes the responses based on your party composition, based on the things you're wearing, based on your ancestry, based on your class, and even based on where you are in the story. And that is ridiculous. No one, and I mean no one, would do this, but they
But is that
did.
really? But is that good storytelling, or is it really impressive programming?
Both. It's both. It's because the storytelling. If you've ever tried to do a dialogue tree, dialogue trees are a nightmare. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't. That's why I don't design video games
Yeah,
or write adventure packs.
this is like saying, okay, I want you to take 15 dialogue trees and combine them into one 1,000,000 times. It's just like ridiculous. And not only that, they're smart. It goes to cool areas. You're fighting cool monsters. You're fighting in the Underdark. You're fighting, all the classics are there. So you're getting to see the cool damn stuff. I mean,
Right.
it's a long time coming. The Divinity series really made this game possible, and they themselves, Larian did these games to get the Baldur's Gate 3 license. This was their dream game. So you have a studio, which I already think is one of the best studios ever of video game, for multiple reasons. They made their life goal to get this license to make this game. And so it's like, so they've been thinking about this for a long time. This wasn't something they just came up with. They've been thinking of this for years. And then they came out with these 2 games just to build up the engine and to build up their rep so that they can then go get the Baldur's Gate 3 license. And they did. And they freaking destroyed it because they wanted to put every ounce of their life into this game to make it as good as possible. And it shows. And
So as a segue, then, would
Yes.
you rather play Baldur's Gate 3
yeah,
with a crew of your people? I understand you can play with your
yes,
friends,
you can play with
online.
Yep.
Would you rather play Baldur's Gate 3 online with your friends, or would you rather play online in a VTT with a questionably bad dungeon master?
I mean, maybe you'll have your friend with the OneD&D VTT.
Why can't you have both?
I'm just trying to compare apples to apples here. You and your friends.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would
signed into
play-
Baldur's 3, or would you rather have I mean, obviously, I'm sure most people would pick a great dungeon master running an amazing, incredible game on a really solid VTT, maybe with a digital experience over, say, Baldur's Gate 3, even potentially. I'm not saying that's everybody.
I mean,
Yeah.
Steven's right. You could have both, though. As long as you are a questionable dungeon master, then you can guarantee that your friends can play with a questionable dungeon master.
But obviously, great GMs and great DMs are a little hard to come by. And so on average, I think it's safe to say, on average, most dungeon masters are average. In fact, 49% or whatever, 49.9% of dungeon masters are below average. So, for a lot of people out there, they are, maybe they look at Baldur's Gate 3 and they go, this is just better. Not only is it more convenient and it's easier and it looks better, but also it is better. I don't know, and again, you sent me some of the video clips, Stephen, about this D&D VTT, and well,
yeah, we'll talk about that in about a second. But
right, that's kind of the segue. But yes,
yeah. Well, first of all, everyone, welcome. Oh my God, we got a lot of people.
People want to hear the news about
people want to hear the news.
VTT.
I know. We'll talk about it in a second. So do like, subscribe. If you want answers to questions, super chat us. Please super chat. And most importantly, we have World of Indigo Isles. Man, we said it was going to be 280 pages. I think it's exactly 280 pages. Might be a little bit more. But it's too freaking big. I don't know why I keep doing this. I gotta stop doing it.
You do it every time, Steve.
Why do I put out a 280 page lore book, Derik? It's
I remember. I distinctly recall you going off about how dumb you were for making your adventure path so huge, and for being like, I put way too much content in there. I put way too much art. I spent way too much money on the book. You're like, I'm not going to do this, and now you're doing it again. Why do you?
He likes quality too much, and it always overcomes him when he tries to be sensible.
Absolutely. As someone who is renowned for making very bad business decisions for his YouTube channel in the name of we think it would be funny or cool, like Steven, despite his moniker of being a savvy businessman, at the end of the day, he is a gamer, and he is kind of a production snob, and he likes his stuff to be at a certain level, and he doesn't, he doesn't care what it costs. He's going to pay it, and he's going to get the product that he wants, even if that means it, balloons and becomes this monstrosity. I mean, honestly, it's one of the things that, us here at Knights of Last Call really respect about your company, is that at the end of the day, you can tell that these are made with love and care, and, hey, yeah, we want to make money, but we want to make a kick-ass product, first and foremost.
Yeah, well, this one's good. There's a lot of lore in here. I was like, it's really big. It's really, really big.
I just like the islands that are from the different people who backed us and the people who submitted islands. I think that's a cool feature.
Oh, tell the story of the anti-Derik island.
So one of the people who backed at the higher tier that was guaranteed an island.
Oh my God! They paid $500 to guarantee that they can put this island into to Deek Derik.
And there were 4 sections of the island, and the northern section had a giant gargantuan automaton who defended little puppets and other small intelligent constructs. And I read the whole thing. I was like, this is interesting. Yeah, I can write this up for you. And he then told me, he's like, I want to explicitly tell you, though, that northern area. I was like, what? I couldn't tell what he was going to say. It's based on the fact that Derik doesn't like puppets.
You know what it's called? It's called the Northern Reaches.
He's like, do you remember that Derik Melinda doesn't like puppets? I was like, yes, I do remember that. I just didn't think of that when you were saying that, but sure. Yeah,
I like that they had to call out specifically, they're like, oh yeah, the northern part of the island has a big robot that's attended by puppets, and you're like, okay, cool. And he's like, no, I want to be so clear with you. This is because Derik doesn't like puppets. Yes. But wait, it gets better. because you are what are you naming the giant robot?
We're naming the giant robot who loves the puppets Malednar.
My pain is your pleasure. Enjoy the Schadenfreude. As now I am named after, Bob wants to know who the backer was.
Who was the back? We have his name.
Well, you'll see when you see an island that has an automaton with a. Actually, I guess I could just say because they're credited for it in the book. So the backer of I'll look up Malednar in my file. I'm sure.
The funny thing is, they were the very first.
Gauna.
What's their name?
It's
Rogelio Gauna. They were the very first person
to
get back to us about an island well in advance of the deadline. And so therefore, when Steven's like, I need an island that we can do some art for. So I was like, well, we got this one in really early. And
I'm shocked.
Some cool visuals.
I thought for sure it would be one of our patrons.
Nope.
But I don't recognize that name unless they're using a pseudonym.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe they said that they talked about you hating poppets as like, Derik who was on your show hates poppets. So I think that they may be someone who watches our show, but still knows how much you hate poppets from that.
Well, you know what? Whoever you are, respect, shout out. I love the troll. As someone who is quite critical of things, I'm also taking it in stride when people, if people want to come after me and make
come after me, bro,
and make a poppet loving android robot named Malegnar. I respect it. I respect the hustle.
So
all I ask, Mark, is that this robot is a kick-ass robot. That's all I ask.
I mean, it's gargantuan sized, and it has an
I'm
artifact that it's shoved
Yes.
into its heart that is like possibly dangerous to its psyche and body that may be like warping.
So you're
it
saying
in some way.
I'm a large unhinged robot.
There's a half-page art of you now. You could put this.
Yeah, I put it into a chat so Derek could see it.
Can
I did. I saw the art.
It's
It
in
looks
the
great.
newsletter.
Okay.
It's in the
so
newsletter,
if you got today's newsletter, you will see Malednar.
Malednar.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention real quick is today only. We have a sale. So we released Jewel of the Indigo Isles for Foundry.
It's finally done.
Done.
We're celebrating.
Completely done. Oh God. Anyhow, I gave. Let's see. It's going to be 25% off everything with the Jewel in it. Dun dun dun. There we go. There's the. Oh, the link is too big. Why is the link too big?
I don't know.
I know why.
Too big.
I know why. Because people added unnecessary
things. Trackers or other things
trackers.
To the back of the link.
Yes, I
there you
fixed
go.
it. There you go.
So,
if you do that, everything,
it's a
even
celebration.
bundles.
I'm
everything.
so happy that
One
it
day.
finished. I know why it took so long for part 3 because part 3 is huge. Like Linda, who wrote to the normal spec, she was like, when she got the book, she's like, I just want to look how long part 3 was because I know Steven kept expanding it. And we found out that it's longer than just part 3. The part that Linda wrote is longer than a Lost Omens typical book. Because she was like, I know it got to be really long by the time I was done.
Wow, I really gotta stop, Derik. I like. It's like, yeah.
Listen, I'm rubbing. You know what? Maybe I'm rubbing off on you, Steven. With my horrible business acumen.
I think it's happening.
I mean, I was just looking behind me, and I was like, yeah. I mean, this thing, the Jewel of the Indigo Isles, is one of the thicker books on my entire shelf, and was definitely not the most expensive. So, like it's like one of those things where it's just like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Well, also because Steven made a price on the Kickstarter based on the original size he thought it was going to be. So anyone who backed on the Kickstarter got like an absolute steal.
Yeah. Well, 25% was an absolute steal, so do it now.
Oh, yeah,
anyhow,
it is also a steal.
And I don't want to bore people because usually we only go 25. We've gone 20 minutes, but here we go.
That's true. Let's talk more about the VTT because Steven, you have some like
I got all the info.
About all of the info on this private-ish, semi-public.
It was weird. Okay.
Private-ish, sort of public.
Yeah, so for someone like me, Steven, who doesn't necessarily follow 5e that closely, I know that there was a recent playtest, which apparently people didn't hate. That's what I understood.
We talked about that a lot last week, actually. We talked all about playtesting last week.
Got it.
If you missed it.
But so there was some kind of semi-private alpha test release of the VTT.
Yeah, so this is what happened. And I wasn't invited, but I heard people who played it, and there's a couple other videos out there from like Nerd Immersion and stuff that go through it. But very simply, is they had a private invite to the D&D VTT, and it was a little weird because you had to sign an NDA to be in the invite, which means you could still share what you did, but you couldn't share any pictures or video, and you couldn't live stream. But what you were allowed to do is talk about it, so people did. But here's gets the weird part, is that you could invite, I think it was up to 7 people to play with you, and they didn't need to sign NDAs. So, like, I know, that's weird. I was like, what? So you
Wouldn't it be funny if someone invited you to play with them and then you didn't have to sign NDAs?
I know. I'm actually angry someone didn't like have me leak it that way. But anyhow, yeah, well, that's ridiculous. I mean,
so weird that
it is very weird.
I don't think it's that ridiculous to have NDAs, but
I signed them weekly.
It's really ridiculous to have NDAs, but only for some people and not for
well, others. I guess maybe they think, oh, we'll look bad. It doesn't matter. You don't do that. You need NDAs for everyone, including people you invite. I imagine, yes, it is a huge pain in the neck to get an NDA for one person, let alone 5, 6, 7 people. But guess what? That's how it works, okay?
The other thing, too, is, I mean, what are the odds that the people that you're doing this with are, have a content platform and have an ability to
but if they say one thing wrong, and you never know, you got to be very careful. If you're having one person sign the NDA, you get everyone sign the NDA. That's the rule. But anyhow, the way it worked is it sounded like it was for PC only, and that you couldn't do it on. I don't think you could do it on on a tablet Mac or a phone. But a few notes. And I'm going to go through kind of the whole general thing. First of all, you needed D&D Beyond to play it. It was required. So, hey, everyone who canceled your subscriptions, you're coming back if you want to use this platform.
Right. So maybe they don't at this point. But
now, is it we don't know yet if it'll be like a separate charge or will it be
no one knows. No one knows. No one knows.
I'm guessing it will be a separate charge, or they will up the cost and make it be included.
Now, does that mean that you also needed, like, again, my knowledge of D&D Beyond is a little sus, but like, if I want to be a class in the D&D VTT, do I have to own that book in my D&D Beyond account?
They didn't get that far, but I guarantee that's gonna be the case.
Correct me if I'm wrong. But one of the main things about this that they've said over and over and over again is, how do we get players to spend more money, right? And as a GM, GMs, we buy everything anyways, right? But that's 1 out of 5, 1 out of 6. So how do you get the other 80% of your, player base to be engaged more? And it's suddenly, if it's like, if every, let's say this was, the Pathfinder VTT, right? And it's like, oh, if you want to be a kineticist, you need to have bought Rage of Elements. And suddenly 3 or 4 people, a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't want to be locked out of that, even if I'm not planning on playing it anytime soon. And so then you end up paying, you buy Rage of Elements, you buy Guns and Gears, you buy Spells of Magic, just so you can have those classes unlocked. And like that talk about monetizing your player base, that does it for sure.
They're going to do that because you need to buy the books at least 3 or 4 times. They're not going to have it that you buy it once. So, and of course, whatever. None of that was outlined, like how exactly it worked, because it was a pre-made adventure with pre-made characters. So everything was.
Sense. So they just gave you everything.
They gave you everything you needed. Right. They gave you everything
Obviously,
you needed.
They're not going to give a demo and then be like, stop, there's a paywall at this point.
That would have been awesome.
That would have been
hilarious if they accidentally kept that.
Well, who did that? World of Warcraft, when they did Hearthstone. They had it that you had to buy. They refunded you.
Oh yeah,
though.
the beta was you had to pay.
Yeah,
even though it was the beta. Yeah, I remember that now.
Yeah, they refunded you, but
No, they didn't refund you. They gave you credit.
They
in
gave
the
you
live
credit.
release.
Let me rephrase that. They review right because it turned out that on average, and back when $500 was a lot of money, people were spending $500 on their decks
on a beta game that they knew that they knew was going to be basically wiped when the commercial release came.
Yes.
Just
well, that's when they knew they had a head five away.
You got to win at that point.
Yeah, they knew they were like, we won. We won Dungeons and Dragons. You know, like they knew they won then.
Yeah.
So
and by the way, E. Armstrong, I do agree. Yeah, this probably does mean that they'll remove the ability for DMs to share books bought through the VTT.
Oh yeah,
because every time I've played D&D Beyond, because we played one online campaign of 5e on Roll20, and the way that we did it was our GM was able to share the books with us somehow or something. And I probably imagine they're going to get rid of that.
Anyhow, so there was a couple of interesting things from here. First of all, it sounds like it was the same adventure they demoed in their videos, and it sounds like the adventure was bad. And it sounds like it was not a great adventure, from what I heard. The other thing is, there's a lot of things that were not D&D like, and I'll tell you the very first one. Let's see what you think of this.
Okay.
There's no grid. When you move, it works exactly like Baldur's Gate 3. You just drag your pawn to where you want it to be. It tells you how many feet you move, and that's it. So the grid is gone. It is just movement like you would anything else.
All right. So I'm going to say I like that. The grid is just an abstraction to make the concept of counting distances easier. In fact, if you go back to original first edition AD&D, distances were given in inches. The assumption was that
because it came from war games, right? Yeah.
So that was always the way that you did it was, I can move 6 inches on the battlefield. And grids came about as a way to sort of, compartmentalize and sort of make it easier. But I mean, if you have a computer, like, what do you need a grid for?
Right. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah. I think that you don't need a grid. The main problem, I would say, is if you have effects that are heavily dependent on a certain amount of distance, like if you're doing a step and that has to be exactly 5 feet, but then you can just create a tool that will make that go 5 feet. The main problem would be if they created maps specifically for the VTT that were not based on a grid and that had weird multiples of feet in the width and distances. That could cause an issue in terms of like not being able to do steps because, oh, wait, I have to do 5 feet, but there's only 1.72 feet on this map at that point. But other than that, I agree with Derik that I think that when you have a computer that can just do it for you, you can just have like a green line that shows the farthest you can drag your token. That is like the end of what your movement distance is, and then just drag somewhere within that, the circle defined by that.
The other thing about it, and I don't want to belabor this point too much, Stephen, is, you were talking about Baldur's Gate 3, and the thing you kept talking about was immersion. And how that, maybe the storyline itself is great. Maybe the combats are cool. Maybe the build, whatever, this dialogue. But really what feels so powerful to you is that sense of immersion. And in my personal opinion, grids are an anti-immersion topic, right? Like that they are an abstraction that we have to layer on top of the game because, it makes it easier to play. And so in my opinion, grids and seeing a big chess grid laid over my really beautiful textured game is, in a sense, a form of anti-immersion. And if they're really trying to buy people into the immersion,
I am similar but opposite.
Okay.
In a weird way.
The grid makes you more immersed?
Strangely, yes, but it's only because beautiful terrain with a miniature on it that's gorgeous and looks like my character is the thing that makes me the least immersed possible. And that's because of the fact that I feel like I'm the gods in Clash of the Titans, and these are my pieces on the board. The more it looks like what it's supposed to look like, I'm not in the scene.
Interesting.
So the less that's there, and the more abstract it is, with theater of the mind obviously being the best case scenario for me, but also just like a starburst that's on a simple grid is fine, because I can be like, okay, this is just, my brain processes that as this is just some kind of an abstraction that's meant to show me roughly where things are. Whereas if you bring out the Dwarven Forge and it's like, no, wow, this is how I always imagined it, then I'm like, that is it. That's the real thing. My brain tells me this is what's happening. You're looking at it from above. You're not looking at it. You're not in it. You're above it.
It shifts that from that sort of first person point of view, that feeling of being there, to that third person omniscient. And you know what? That has always been my biggest, complaint about that process. But to be fair, I don't think grid or no grid, a VTT at that scale, because a lot of people I know that use VTTs use them just like you would a Chessex dry erase mat. They draw some quick lines on it, and you've got some tokens, and maybe they even just have generic art for the monsters. They don't have these custom bespoke tokens and, lighting effects and, beautiful maps or whatever, which is a cool thing. But I often sometimes feel like the more detailed that things get, like you said, especially if it looks like a video game, then you're like, this doesn't even remotely feel like a role-playing game experience. It feels very much like a video game experience.
So, by the way, Baldur's Gate 3 does not have a grid. And that's one of the big things about it, is that it is...
Yeah, people in chat are saying they get frustrated. They try to do a melee attack, but they're like 3 inches farther away than their melee
It does
reach,
happen
they can't even see that.
in Baldur's Gate 3, where you are literally right next to the guy and you can't attack because you're 6 inches and you're like, oh, and you can't... There's no dare. I mean, that does happen in the game. So... It can lead also to, am I flanked with him? Am I not flanked with him? Am I close? Am I not close? I mean, playing several hundred hours of Baldur's Gate 3 and seeing this happen, it does make movement much more precise, because it's not, I just move 15, 20, 30 feet, but it's like, okay, I move... Like, you're trying to get just close enough, especially with your spellcasters. So I'm 31 feet away. So I'm not getting, I'm not in the area of effect for most spells, but I'm close enough that the next turn I can walk in, and it's a lot harder to do when you're trying to do the measurements and stuff. So,
Right. But what you're seeing here is this. And I mean, a VTT like this, or even a video game, really hyper emphasizes this, right? Which is, you have these two competing interests when you're talking about a role-playing game, even a computer role-playing game, which is the narrative, the sort of immersive narrative of this experience of being this character. And then I also want to play the game, and I want to be able, because again, in real life, there's no way that I, Derik, would ever be able to go, oh, that guy can only move 28 feet. I'm going to be 31 and a half feet away exactly when I cast my spell. And that way, he can't even hit me. It's like, no, like we don't like, that is a gamist idea. It's a gamist notion. But as much as people talk about immersion and wanting to be engaged in the storytelling, people also do want to play the game. And I don't think that's, by the way, I don't think that's a bad thing at all. And part of the fun of playing a role-playing game, I actually think, for a lot of people, including myself, is actually that non-immersive element at times. It's the element of, we are playing a game, and I am making a super gamey decision. Who here hasn't thrown down that fireball and placed the template just perfectly so that it hits every single monster, but just licks the feet of all of your party members?
Oh, I do that all the time. Like, I enjoy playing in grid base, but I can understand why they might not want to put a grid. Right. I think they would be smart to have the grid as an optional thing that you can either toggle it momentarily to see which space your character is theoretically in right now, because clearly there are larger creatures that take up more space. So there's some concept of space in the game, or just literally keep it on all the time and have it snap to grid. Like, that seems smart to me, because then groups could do the best of both worlds or whatever they want. That being said, who knows if they did that or not?
Steven, I'm assuming that, I don't know if there's anything information about this. I'm assuming there was not even a grid option at all.
Oh, there's not a grid option. In fact, that was one of the questions, is that what's more interesting is not necessarily what was said and revealed during the playtest, but at the end of the playtest, they had a survey, and I have all the survey questions, and that's the more interesting part, because one of the survey questions was, do you want a grid?
Oh,
Oh,
interesting. So they already knew that some people might want a grid.
Mm-hmm. Is that something that
So they
people are
knew it
interested
enough
in?
at least to ask if people wanted one. So it
Mhm.
sounds like they're considering adding a grid as an optional feature.
Mhm.
And before they budget dev hours onto it, they're seeing how desired it is.
Yes. By the way, I have to give props to Mark, who never quotes movies ever, but he quoted not only Clash of the Titans, but the 1981 version, which was probably out before you were born, Mark. And
It was out before I was born, but when I was really little, it was
That's
one
a
of my
good
favorite
movie.
movies.
Yeah, who doesn't? I mean, that was like I think that was the last Harry
Harryhausen
Harryhausen or what?
whatever his
What's
name.
his name?
Oh no, how you mean the stop
No,
motion?
Ray Harryhausen.
Yes, who made
What
the stop
I've been
motion?
told is that when I was little, I liked watching Clash of the Titans, but I got sad in Jason of the Argonauts because they killed the dragon.
Right.
Which, as you know me now, having written the dragon ancestries and other things, is pretty on brand.
But you're okay with the Kraken? The Kraken could die, but the dragon.
The dragon didn't do anything wrong. Ladon was just guarding. He was just guarding his stuff. He wasn't meaning any harm.
To this day, the scene from Jason the Argonauts where they throw the Hydra teeth and they become the skeletons is like one of my favorite things in movies ever. Anyway,
so let's see what else was there. So here's one. Now I understand why they didn't put this in because it's an absolute nightmare, sort of. It's not a nightmare though in Unreal 5, which is there was no dynamic sight or fog of war. So you could see everything. So when monsters appeared, didn't matter where they were. So now
let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When I first started using VTTs, Roll20,
yes,
I thought the dynamic lighting, the line of sights was awesome. Like I was like, this is awesome, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like your character is in the room, so your character can see what's going on, but my character's back here in the hallway. I can't see anything. And I thought that was great. Now, when I play VTTs and Foundries, I have shared PC vision on all because I want every PC, even if you're the wizard in the back of the hallway that hasn't even entered the room yet, I want you to be able to see what's actually going on in the game. I'm curious how you guys do you use dynamic lighting and all that other stuff?
Yes.
Oh.
But I use it.
You use Theater of the Mind, Mark. So
He does.
But when we play with a VTT, which I sometimes do, it is in Foundry, and my GM does use the default like dynamic lighting and PC vision, and it's actually an issue for multiple reasons. Because, for example, I am a mounted, or for a while I was a mounted cavalier, and so we have my mount and the token that was like theoretically me when I'm not mounted. And so because of that fact, I eventually changed the picture of my unmounted character to, in Venture Brothers, the ignore me guy. I changed it to that because I would just throw it into rooms and other places where I wasn't so that I could see. Because I couldn't see because my mount was not what determined whether I could see or not. The me that was said to be me was. So I would just throw the ignore me into the room and be like, so guys, remember, I'm not actually here. Ignore me.
Right. This is your observer.
Yes, it was my observer. And so it definitely causes issues, in my opinion, and I guess it's more immersive in some ways, but it's also definitely led to the wizard being like, is there a guy I could hit if I moved around? Because he doesn't want to move his piece so he could see it and then forget where he was before. And so he often has to ask everybody else, or even the GM, to describe some of the things because he can't see it right then.
So it's interesting, Stephen, though, correct me if I'm wrong, but in the playtest, if the only video I've seen of it, right, the models, the miniatures, look like miniatures.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So would it be safe to say that what they are actually trying to emulate then is what it would look like if you were to build a diorama at your dining room table and you and your friends were sitting around there playing on it with miniatures? Because
yes and no. I'll tell you
grid
why.
and no dynamic light effects and no fog of war, because when you're sitting around at the table, everyone can see the same thing.
Yeah, it's a crux. It's a crutch. We talked about this last week. They're doing this on purpose because it's very easy to do a 3D render of a static monster or PCs. Do you know how much work it's going to be to add animations to hundreds of monsters? I mean, they barely have enough time to finish this thing as it is. So I guarantee if I was in that meeting, would be like, oh my God, we do not have enough time to animate everything. What do we do? It's like, well, why don't we pretend everything is just a token and it's just like a little mini like this. And then we just use the minis and then we can have them fight. And when they fight, they go like this. They go, kee, 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 kee. And there we go. And it's an immersion, like it's a old school. And it's like, dude, you're doing that because you don't have hundreds of thousands of hours to animate everything. That's why. Right. To get this out. It's that's why. And I'm willing to die on that hill. I guarantee that's why they did it.
Well, the other thing, Disky says, speaking of the minis, I'm super curious how they're going to monetize them. The other thing is, if you don't have to go through all these hoops, like you're talking about, Steven, of animating everything, then it's a lot easier to just produce them en masse and sell them for $1.99 for the file or whatever.
Or hold on, or even better, do a gotcha. Where you pay money and then you randomly get a uncommon rare, or rare Driss.
Oh shit!
Right?
Wow!
And it just pops out and it opens up.
Mark should be in charge of your company, Steven. He's got all the money making ideas.
No kidding.
Look at that.
I would not approve of those scummy money making ideas as an actual thing to do. I would be very upset. But I'm just imagining that would be something they could do, right?
And by the way, I say this as someone who used to crack packs of D&D minis and Pathfinder battles, which are random assortments of pre-painted minis.
Yeah, and I know.
And you're like sitting there going like, come on.
I got one better. They buy Hero Forge and then they integrate the two systems, and then you can make your minis. So
you can print out 3D prints.
Right, and then do 3D prints of your minis.
Yeah.
I mean,
they're you know what the problem is? They weren't going to do this, but now they're watching this stream and now they're like, oh shit, we're taking down.
I think that low key, there was probably a decent chance that they were.
I mean, to be fair, Magic the Gathering makes a lot of money, and I'm sure they look at that and go, what would a mythic rare, especially imagine if the common version of, say, the Beholder, right, is just this, it looks like a cool 3D render, and then there's like a rare version of it which looks a lot better, and then there's a mythic rare version that's sort of like this animated thing with the eye tentacles sort of twitching. And
I'll do you one even better.
People would pay
you
for
get a
that.
Death Tyrant.
I got more than that. Wait, there's a few things. First, it's actually a great idea because you can't buy power in D&D. And if they actually make it that you can buy power, people will revolt because that's not how D&D works.
Correct. But you can't do that.
You can't do that. But you can have variations and skins. I mean, and then do what Steam does, make a third-party marketplace where you have to use, I don't know, Astral Diamonds, and then you use Astral Diamonds and you can trade your minis with other people, and then WotC gets a cut of that because it's on their marketplace. So if you accidentally I get 2 mythic red dragons, I don't need 2, I'll sell one for some mithril diamonds, which of course you have to, buy in their marketplace, and then voila.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think there's a decently high chance that they're going to have a gotcha system, so that because of Magic. Because when they talked about D&D being under monetized, that was in comparison to Magic.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what they're going to be.
And again, if they were really, really smart, right, you would have different models that they either produce or generate through this third-party marketplace that you're talking about, Steven, where they get a cut. It's the Holy Avenger. It's the Flame Tongue. It's a Cloak of Elvenkind. It's Boots of Elvenkind, right? And then like a WoW character, MMO character, where you've got all your different equipment slotted in. Well, now you can go and buy cool customized thing. And as a player, you're like, yeah, I'll pay 99 cents so that my virtual mini looks cooler. And suddenly,
do you want the basic Cloak of Elvenkind, or do you want Triss Cloak of Elvenkind,
right?
The one that he got from the Rangers of Myliki?
Yeah. Good deep cut there. But yeah, like exactly. Like people will go in, and then what ends up happening is every player for every PC ends up investing $20, $30 into every PC they make. That's insane.
All right, you guys talk. I'm gonna pull something off the shelf. And I'm gonna show everyone.
Steven's gonna pull something off the shelf. So,
Smite Guys,
to remind everyone, this is speculation about whether or not it's gonna be a gacha for and exactly how this is gonna be monetized, because the demo had sample characters and they did not explain that. But it seems compelling to me based on what their goal it seems to be, based on what they've said to investors.
Do you want to see what I bought back in the day? Back in
Let's see
2009, 2010. Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
My World of Warcraft 3D painted character. That's my character.
Is that your character?
Yes.
Oh my God, you're such a nerd.
And this was expensive. Well, back, I think it was $100. It was my figure paint. So back when 3D printing just came out, I mean, this thing is really amazing. It's like, I don't know how they did it, but you can get.
Is that a Draenei?
The Draenei, yeah.
Draenei, whatever.
Yeah. It was
a
Draenei
like
Hunter. No, Hunter. Please.
Oh, okay.
Please.
Excuse me.
Paladin, kidding. So no, yeah. So this was like how much I loved my character, because this is back when I still have something like 10,000 hours on World of Warcraft. I mean, I have years on World of Warcraft, and I saw this and I love my character so much that I bought this. And let me tell you, people are going to spend the money on their characters.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
big time.
They're going to spend the money, and they know it.
I mean, because you know what? I think what Wizards of the Coast realized is, look, people do want to spend money. It's not that players are keeping their wallets shut. Players do want to spend money, and that's why they go and get custom Wormwood dice trays. The problem is that money wasn't going to Wizards of the Coast.
No.
And if
I'd say overall the problem is that people have an aversion to spending money on the game itself, and not just for Wizards of the Coast, but also for any small.
Right. They'll balk at a rule book for $80, but then go and spend $150 on custom gem dice for their character.
Yes. No, absolutely. That is a literal example I've used many times before. Even if the rule book, which they will use for hundreds of hours of gameplay, and it took absolutely massive amounts of game design, play testing, and just like thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of hours of work. And they're like, no way, $80. This is just words. It's a book. But then the custom gen dice, they would people spend hundreds of dollars on those.
Yeah.
Because as people said in chat, dice are something tactile, and the book feels like it's just thoughts, and it's not as tactile. So absolutely, it's how board games sell for more by having more stuff in it. Right?
And I'd like to point out something here, though, which is, I mean, if that is what people want, and that is what the consumer wants, I'm sure buying that mini for Steven was a really cool experience.
He's never going to forget that he has that. In fact, he still hasn't. Clearly, he brought it
on my shelf.
And my group someone in our group, one of our players, like as a Christmas gift to everybody, was one of the original Kickstarters when Hero Forge became a thing. And his Christmas present to everybody was that he did the Kickstarter. He got everybody's mini made. And we have had incredible experiences with Hero Forge. We always will get them 3D printed. They'll do the painting or whatever. And we always are like, oh, these are so cool. These are so great. Yeah, you're spending, I don't know, $45 on a plastic mini, but it's a cool experience. And so if it's a way for players, to feel like they can invest in their character and their game, I mean, yeah, I get it. It's a microtransaction cash sink, but no one's putting a gun to your head to buy this stuff. Like, it's a choice, and people want to spend it,
The other
Fortnite
thing,
and stuff is free, and people still figure out a way to spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on it.
So the other thing they had was everyone who played it said they were able to figure out how to play it very quickly, and that it, quote, played like a video game. Now, I've heard a lot of things about D&D over the years, but learning how to play it quickly has never been one of them, ever.
Well, were these people who already knew how to play D&D, and so they just learned how to play on the VTT quickly?
Yes. Okay, fair enough. How about this? I've never heard someone who's gotten to play a VTT quickly and easily as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely
I've
not.
never heard someone's
Never.
first response about
Yes.
a VTT being like, "Oh, this was easy.
Oh wow, this was intuitive,
learned,
and I made
I learned
Right.
how to play this quickly. I definitely want to use this
Mhm.
again next time." That is
Right.
not
Right.
what anyone says the first time they use a VTT.
that. Is
But
VTTs are horrible first time experience.
after enough sessions, you're like, I want to keep using this, and this is definitely my jam, and it helped so much. But like the first time, there's always friction, so that is interesting. That's, I think, good for them if they got people to feel like it was easy to get into. That's a good thing in usability.
Yes and no.
Now, the fact that people thought it felt like a video game, I'd want to know why. But
But
that's
also,
not
Mark,
necessarily-
Well, I know why.
Isn't part of role playing games having that first experience be painful and involve
No.
countless rules flipping? Aren't we denying people the joy of
you don't
having
need
that?
to gatekeep,
Absolutely.
Derik. Sorry.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that they did have, which people did not like, is that all the animations and the spell effects and everything were necessary. So, like, if you cast a spell, you had to see the animations. There was
you
no
couldn't
way.
turn animations off.
No, at least not in this. It was, you had to go through. You couldn't skip things, and they said it really slowed down combat, which has already taken a while. So now again, I imagine it's something they can fix that easily. But
the way that Nerd Immersion described it is that not only are the spell effects a thing, but the actual like dice and the damage roll is still something that happens in the VTT itself. He described it as like casting Burning Hands, and you see this wave of fire roll out, and then also virtually you see like the 2 or 3d6 or whatever of the Burning Hands damage come out almost like as if it's part of the wave of fire. So maybe it's that it's like it's an all-in-one package.
Yeah,
you know,
it might be. It's hard to say because we don't know yet.
I could get where that could be very popular.
Yeah.
You know? Like they were describing like arrows or magic missiles hitting people and then seeing like the damage dice fly out of them.
There's nothing wrong with that, and that's a big part of Baldur's Gate, but they also were video game guys, and they know exactly, like, whenever you cast a spell, a spell in Baldur's Gate takes a second, maybe less. Like, they're fast. There's a lot. They're very quick, and that's to keep the pace going. Like, there's
D&D
never
is slow
these.
as shit.
What's that?
D&D is slow as hell, though. I mean,
Right. So that's the thing. It's like, I don't know how long these animations were for, but like, if they're more than a second each, let me tell you, that's too long. Okay, these things have to be fast. Okay, when you cast Magic Missile in Baldur's Gate 3, it's very quick. It
if
literally
I
comes
cast
up
a
and boom.
3-action Magic Missile, Steven, I expect it to take 6 seconds. Okay, because that's how long it takes.
Well, it takes you 6 seconds to actually select all the people you're affecting, but then when you click the button, it's like near instant. It's very fast. But the whole point is like those little things do add up over time. Like, you know, it's one of these. Steve Jobs was famous for this. Like when he first invented the Mac, and you can look this up, he was screaming at his engineers because it took like 30 seconds. I think the Mac took like a minute to start up. It took a long time. And he said, look, and they couldn't get it to go any faster. And he said, look, if you can take off 1 second in the start off time, you're going to save millions of hours in the long run, because that 1 second adds up. And he wasn't wrong. And they did it. And it's like, if you're playing a game and you're expected to play a weekly game, and those little animations are a little bit too long, you're adding more and more time to every game.
For me, it's less about the time. It's more of just like, okay, this is old. We get it. Okay,
yeah, that too. It's both.
You're casting your electric arc again or whatever.
Yeah, it's a combo. It's a combo.
You know,
you can combine up. It's like, remember Final Fantasy VII when it came out, and you would try to do Knights of the Round, and you would be like, I have
horrible.
a life outside
Final
of watching
Fantasy
Knights of the
VII.
Round.
Final Fantasy anything of all the what are they called, the ultras, like when they summon the gods, and like
the summons.
Yeah, the summons, and those seeds, they're fun the first time, and then after that they're like, nah, who cares? So yeah, but they had that. They also had a question if you should have battlefield animations and animations on characters. They had that as a question. They wanted to know in the survey, should they have that?
So does that mean like fire that's lit in the environment is like burning and animating,
Yes.
and like your character, when the magic missile hits you, is like, "Oh, I've been hit by a magic missile."
And also animation of characters, so maybe they swing their swords instead of just banging against each other.
Or
Right?
they
There's no
move their
death and
hands.
death effects. There's no death effects in the game. When things die, they just die, and you say, okay, it's dead, and you take it off the screen. That is probably they just didn't get around to it, because if I would say the top animations or top things that have to do with combat, that's up there. like that's when combat's over, so you kind of want to make sure it's very clear when something dies, and you want to make sure it's clear to everyone. Also, I mean, I'm someone who's been playing VTTs I think about 13 years. I can't even remember, it's been so many years. And whenever I have a very loud death animation in mind, and when that animation goes, everyone cheers. Everyone's like, yeah, they always cheer. And I'm like, yeah, it's a visceral thing, man. Those guys, they're very excited when they bring someone down.
I mean, Foundry VTT, I don't really use any gimmicky sound effects, but when I click on the mini and I apply the damage, and it turns to that grade with the skull, grayed out with the skull over it, everyone goes, yeah, there's that always that.
Yeah, now mine does that. It has a big X and it goes, and everyone's like, yeah.
What if it was a small fey creature? Does it still go? Bleh?
It's the same every time. Although I do randomize the spell effects. I have like 5 animations for spells, and 5 animations for missing, and 5 animations for attacks. So those are slightly different. So when
that is 5 more animations for spells, effects, and spell attacks than I have.
Yeah, well,
zero.
They're
zero.
so subtle, you can barely tell the difference between them. But I'm crazy.
Yeah, but no, not. It's weird that they didn't have a death thing in there. I don't necessarily think that there should be some sort of death animation, but but here's the problem. Actually, not the problem. Let me go back to what I was describing. Most of the time, and in fact, I would say 95% of the time, when I am GMing a game at a table, and I've got 4 goblins and an ogre, and we're playing, and the party kills a goblin, it doesn't animate. I just take it off the board.
Well, I still have it die, and then I take it off the board.
But what do I do to say die? I go, oh, that final blow kills the goblin. He, screams and dies. And then I just reach over, I pick up the mini, and I take it off the board. So it really feels like they are trying to, like, the VTT experience is almost feels like this is like when we traditionally think of VTTs, like Roll20 and Foundry. It feels like they're trying to do something different than that, though. It feels like they are literally trying to create a 3D virtual experience. It's like tabletop simulator more than a VTT, right?
Well, it definitely is. Because something else they don't have drawing tools in the game yet.
Wow.
They don't have the ability for doors to work correctly.
Well, that's probably just a development thing.
That is a development thing, but drawing tools, I don't know, that sounds pretty important. Like, how do you show when things are, I don't know, like if you want to draw something on the screen? I draw all the time on the screen.
I'm curious though, if you're like at home and you're playing on like a piezo flip, not a flip map, but like one of those battle mats and stuff like that. Like, do you bust out, your markers or whatever and draw all over it?
All the time. Yeah. I have markers constantly. I'm always drawing on my.
Me too.
Maps.
I love to just use Chessex wet erase, or actually we use these like Tactiles, which are like these interlocking puzzle pieces that have a red dry erasable surface on them. And I draw stuff all the time.
But the whole point of that is like, so is it a VTT? Because like it sounds like it's a weird hybrid at this point, because there's no grid. Okay. Yes and no, or maybe there's going to be a grid. Who knows? But the point is that's kind of necessary for VTTs, more or less. There's no fog of war and dynamic sight. Okay, that's an iffy thing. That's hard to do, and I get it. And maybe they don't want it. But then they're like, oh, there's no drawing tools. I'm like, okay, that's kind of where I draw the line. You get it? See what I did there? I draw the line.
I see. That was a turn of phrase.
That's what I call that.
Very punny.
I'm punny. But no, seriously, you need that. That is like so necessary to be a
How
GM.
would you demarcate an area without the
So,
ability to draw
okay.
something in? Do you
Okay.
have to like place
So
like a mini or something?
I don't
So
know. There you can't draw.
No,
So-
and again, I understand 100% what this VTT is. I 100% in the day when it got released. Okay, I spent a lot of money. This is back when it wasn't made out of like resin. It was when it was made out of made out of plastic. It was made out of resin and hand painted. We were so excited. We were
Not
adults.
lead?
We finally paid it. No, we bought a ton of Dwarven Forge, like a ton of it. Not like what some crazy people have, but we bought the cavern set and the hallway set and the room set, and it was so cool. And sure, building it was kind of a pain in the ass, but it looked so good. But why did we stop using it? It wasn't because of the time to set up. It was because we had no way. If someone casts Wall of Fire, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to mark on the Dwarven Forge? I can't draw on it with a Sharpie or a marker, right? There was no way to highlight the Druid cast Entangle, or that area is difficult terrain. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to mark on that? And it was like impractical. The more I hear about this is I'm envisioning a group of players sitting around a table with a really awesome Dwarven Forge diorama built in front of them, except apparently without a grid. And we either are putting minis in there and we're playing. And when the mini dies, I take it out. And how would you draw? I can't draw something. How would you draw in this on a piece of Dwarven Forge? I mean, Joss says red string. I mean, which is not an ideal solution in that.
The only way you could mark on it is with a hidden Markov model.
Sure. Yeah. No, well, what we usually end up doing was like putting dice down, but then that was really awkward too. So it was kind of difficult. It was kind of a problem.
Well, it sounds like it's not a VTT and it's not a video game. It's like in a weird place right now. And I'm very curious. I mean, someone did ask, how did
I like what Derik was calling it, which is like true virtual tabletop, in the sense that it's not what we use as a VTT, but it is truly trying to be virtually
right. It's virtual, but it's trying not to actually take advantage of that virtuality in a sense. It's trying to be a replica of the real experience, including all of the downsides.
Well, they sent guitar guy Nick asked, how will the GM make their own adventures? They're going to support Homebrew. It's actually well known that they said there's going to be a marketplace. So there will be a marketplace. There will be a way to create adventures and create environments, to create Homebrew. That's one of the reasons they actually used Unreal, because a lot of people know how to use Unreal. So that's true. There's no information on how that works yet, but that is going to be part of it. And they did say that you could, quote, play any game on this. So it is like what you said, Derik, is that, if you wanted to play Pathfinder on it, because it has dice and it has minis, you can.
It sounded more like TTS. Yeah. I don't know if you've. I don't know.
Of course, I know what TTS. Of course, I know.
Okay. But I don't know if you've played it. Like, I'm envisioning a world like Tabletop Simulator, for better or for worse, is like, when you're playing a board game, these objects are like virtual objects.
Yes.
Like, you have to like pick them up with your mouse and set them down on the area. You can't. You can flick pieces across the table. Hell, there's even a flip table option.
I know.
Just throw the table up.
Yeah, it actually does sound. Maybe they should have just put VTT and reprogrammed it, because it sounds a lot more like it.
Well, no, but it sounds like TTS on steroids.
Yes,
and with a lot more, maybe, and the TTS typically has very little rules integration.
Right.
And so if they're using the kind of the D&D Beyond as sort of a tape for that, but like, and now Black Rabbit makes a great point. I love TTS, but my players on potato computers did not. TTS is famous for being a memory hog and a CPU hog.
Right.
So
they kept claiming that they're going to try to make this work on your phone and your tablet and your other devices.
Well, they can, because that's not them. That's the engine, and the engine's Unreal. And if Unreal works, then it works.
That's fair. And then it could be that it runs without using as much memory as
they can do a lot on the back end. They can do a lot backwards and then stream it to your device. So, by the way, there was no rules lookup in the client. How about that?
Ooh. there's no rules look up in your Dwarven Forge. You got to look
I
it up
know,
in your
I know.
real
Well,
book.
It's not the greatest.
I know, but if they're making you buy D&D Beyond and buying all this stuff, wouldn't you kind of want to have some rules? I mean,
Shouldn't you be able to, if you have to log on to D&D Beyond to use it, shouldn't they have some integration?
well,
we
again,
also have
it's a big pain in the neck. It's like a big
Eric
shit.
S. Riley did a super chat that said Tailspire is exactly the same program.
Is that that like 3D modeling?
Yeah, no, it's a VTT that's very nice.
It's a VTT.
It's a very nice. I've never used Tailspire. I've seen it, but I've never used it. Here we go. Let's see. Looking it up. I mean, it looks amazing. It looks really nice. The problem with a lot of these VTTs and why I never really used them is because 90% of these VTTs are like, oh, here's my VTT, and then nothing's working, and then I'm like, all right, whatever. So, but it sounds like this one actually works, and this one does look very cool, and this one does replicate. If you look at the screen shots, it looks like a tabletop, like on purpose.
Right, but like real talk though, like when I play Foundry VTT, I have another window open on another monitor with Archives of Nethys open. I almost never use. Yeah, see, all three of us do. So what the hell are we talking about? Like, I don't.
Yeah,
use
I
don't use the in-game. I don't use the Foundry VTT compendium lookup anyways.
I know, but well,
Archives is way quicker, and I'm more familiar with it, and I can kind of multitask a little bit easier. I don't know. I don't think that's that could just be something that they haven't gotten into the development yet.
I mean,
but
if
honestly,
they had an Archives of Nethys,
that's not a deal breaker for me.
If they had an Archives of Nethys equivalent in D&D,
we got to pay for it, Mark.
Story.
You got to pay for it, Mark.
By the way, how far along is Tailspire? Because I'm looking at the animations and the graphics, and damn, this thing looks good. I'm curious if it's actually gotten to this point, because it looks really, really good. Tailspire. It just looks exactly like a mini game. It's very nice. So, we got Dungeons and Discourse. Hi, Dungeons. I saw your video. She also was going on about this and how crappy it is, and she got a lot of views on that one. Let's see. I don't think it's crappy. I don't think it's a bad VTT. I just think it's in a weird space right now. It's like,
I will say this.
It's weird.
From everything that we've described, let's assume, and we know that this is very early in the development, and they're obviously taking a lot of surveys. But let's pretend for a moment that all of the things that we have talked about are really their intention and their design goal. No grid, then you're right, in my opinion. It is a crappy VTT, but what it is not is a crappy virtual table.
Correct.
like it's what we think of as VTT. Yeah, that's not very good at doing that. But if it is trying to be more like TTS than Roll20, okay. Because I'm gonna guess. I could be wrong. In Baldur's Gate 3, is there a rules compendium lookup?
Yes.
There is.
Okay. Oh yeah, everything's linked.
Okay. All right. Respect. Because I was gonna say, like, if they're trying to go for that full video game experience, then I could easily imagine them saying, like, look, we want people to be playing our D&D virtual tabletop the same way you'd be playing it around your kitchen table. And if somebody has to look something up, they'll pull out their player's handbook, or they'll head over to D&D Beyond.
Well, that was another question
on their phone, tablet, or laptop, right?
Well,
like that's
wait. What? That was another question. Is that they wanted to know how much automation they wanted in this. Okay, and they said it was a weird space because right now saves were not done automatically, and it would ask if you wanted to save on characters. It doesn't even prompt. The GM has to say, okay, everyone do a reflex save now. So Baldur's Gate 3, it doesn't have it does have a compendium, but what it has is that every feat and every ability and every magic item and every spell you can click on, and it has highlighted words, hyperlinks, and you can click on any of the hyperlinks that will give you the definition.
Where do the hyperlinks take you, though?
They bring up pop-ups to explain what they are, what the items are. So it's in-game, but it's not an actual... It's actually better. Yeah, mouse over and press T. That's exactly right. And then nested tooltips there. That's the word. I couldn't think of the word. They're basically nested tooltips. Nested tooltips are better than a compendium because they're in-game and they're quick.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of nested tooltips.
I love nested tooltips.
Yeah, it's way better.
So we
that-
have a question from Rage
Oh,
the
yeah.
Promise
Sorry.
End on a
Sorry.
super chat that says, "Do you think they will have the DM's Guild revenue split on the marketplace for this
Sure.
VTT?"
If not the same, maybe worse. Who knows?
Oh, they're going to totally take
Yeah,
a
we don't know.
percentage. Yeah, but no one knows. It's probably 30%.
Yeah, it may be better for the person because they don't have to pay drive-through some of.
If
the,
I guarantee, if
the
I
money.
was them, all right. I'm putting on my hat, Mark. What I
Okay.
would do is I would say that there'll be different tiers. Is that if you want to become like a power developer, or
you
something,
could level up because
you can level
even
up.
their lawyers can't come up with a system for it.
No,
that
even their
doesn't have
lawyers game.
experience
That's what
points
that
in
was the
leveling
quote.
up,
No, the
because
quote was even our lawyers
game.
play games, which is
when they were
totally
talking
not
about
true,
why
by
you
the way.
can level up to pay them more money.
Right.
For
No,
on
what you can do is you can become like a developer and pay, say, $9.99, $1,000 a year, and you'll get different tools, and then you'll only pay like a 25% or 20%
So for like the
cut.
real full-on production businesses that are doing this as like a full-time means of employment or whatever. Versus some casual developer who might get a really reasonable and cool free tool set,
but not
that doesn't include all the bells and whistles, but then they're going to pay a higher percentage when they do.
Completely standard in software development, by the way. So that's how software development works. So
yeah, for sure.
That's why it wasn't that hard. It wasn't hard for me to come up with that as 100% true.
More so than anything, I'd be curious to know what the result. I doubt we'll ever learn them. What the results of this survey were, because I really do wonder how people feel about the VTT experience. Do you want, I dare I say it, this sort of augmented virtual reality that we get with like Roll20 and Foundry, right? Or do you want like where you're really leveraging the virtual experience into a way where it would not feel like something that would happen at your table? Or would you prefer it to be like, I wish it was just like me being at the table, except that I could play with people who live half a world away? I'm curious, even like with people in chat, like what do you all want? Because honestly,
do people want grids?
Yeah.
I would say that I would want a grid option to be there if I was.
Well, we got a lot of people, so I'm going to do a survey. Here we go.
I mean, to be fair, I would want a grid just because that's what I'm used to playing with at my table, right? I'm used to having
I just like grids, even in video games.
I prefer
if I can have a grid, then
hexes, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't say it was a square grid. I just said I like grids.
Okay, you're right. You didn't.
Even in a video game,
I'm going to make it
quantized movement.
So, do you want a grid in your VTT? Yes, no. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay, there you go. Let's see what people think.
Jimmy knows what some.
It can be a hex grid or a square grid.
Grid is any. Could be hex. Could be square. Could be anything.
Power grid.
Yeah, could be anything.
Any kind of grid.
Any grid.
Yeah, Jimmy knows what he's talking about. He's saying hex grids are ideal.
Because
then you get rid of that. You get rid of that annoying diagonal problem.
Oh my God!
If you're doing it online,
wait.
Help you with that too.
Okay,
that's true.
Oh God, we have almost 100 votes. It's 96% yes.
Well, I had a suspicion when they put.
I guess you guys are definitely the minority here.
The question on the survey that meant they were committed to making grid be an option, because there's no way they're not going to get at least a high number of people who want to have a grid.
Well, I guarantee it's way easier. And you see, they're also, okay, a big part of this is they're limited by the software they're using. And it is way easier for Unreal to not use a grid because it already has all the tools in here for distance and it's all built in. So it's actually easier for them not to put a grid in. Putting a grid requires custom coding, baby, and a lot of math, and that is a pain in the butt. That all has to be implemented, as opposed to how far away are they? That's already built in. They don't have to do anything. It's already built in. So there you go.
Yeah. I mean,
well, I'm going to close this because that's 95% yes.
Yeah, that's statistically significant.
That was enough.
I think we know what people wanted to. If it was in a one of the OneD&D whatever they're calling it now 2024 playtests, that would be considered to be something that it was above 80% approval. So
all right, well, let's do the next one. Do you want drawing tools for the GM in your VTT?
Well, everyone's gonna say
yes or no.
That is the weird question.
I want to see.
Yeah, I mean,
You want to
ultimately,
see who's gonna say no to just
rule-
troll?
No, because you never know. Because some people
Why
might
would
say
you
it
want
takes.
to not have drawing tools?
So I actually agree with like rules lawyer Ronald's in the chat, and he said I'd like the option of a grid. I agree, but honestly, I think gridless is kind of cool, and that's actually kind of how I feel about
100 votes, 97% yes.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna close that one. I got another poll, but okay, I got one that will actually be a little controversial.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Something that's not so open.
Let's not make it something as
But
open.
you gotta
as
start with the
drawing
easy ones. You
tools.
gotta warm people up. Gotta get them ready to vote. Vote. Here we go. You know that's true. You can't dive into the meaty questions right away. You gotta warm them up. Okay. Do you want animations?
Oh, no, that's a great question.
Mhm.
And would you be? And there should be a implication there.
That's
that you'd
next.
Be willing to pay for
But
that.
there should be like a yes with skip
Animations
option and
on
no.
your
Right? Give
PCs.
3 options. There's like yes, no skip option, yes with the skip.
No, I'm just
option.
talking about animations.
Just
Just-
animations.
Just
existing at all.
animations, just at all.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, but
let
the
me.
problem is that if they don't have a skip option, then they have to decide between unskippable animations.
What? I mean, that's
and
being
no
pedantic.
No.
but-
That
but-
was the unskippable animations was the attacks and spell effects. I'm talking about animations on your PCs, like them
Oh, I
swinging
see.
swords and
Like
stuff.
animating pieces and environments.
Yeah. And honestly, I kind of feel like the answer is like no. So to be clear, this poll is asking for like character animations, like when you move your mini, do you want the miniature just to kind of go slide, the way it would be at a real table? Or do you want your miniature to go like, huzzah, like you're playing a game of battle chess on an MS-DOS machine from 1992?
You guys are killing it. I don't know. Both of you are on your A game today because you guys are killing it with the analogies, and the both of you are really good today. Let's see. Wow, this one's all over the place as I thought it might be.
I'm gonna say no. I actually don't. I don't want that. At that point, that for me is where we are getting into this is too much of a video game. For me, that's like that. Somebody said it earlier, and I don't remember who you were, but you were right on that. They used the term uncanny valley when Mark and I were talking about at what point does the game sort of leave that sort of simulation and become like, oh, I'm Zeus and Hera and standing above and moving the chess pieces. And for me, like having the animations is honestly is it. Yeah, Aaron. It was Aaron who said it. Yeah, you were
Star Wars chess. There we go. So right now, the way the VTT works is the pieces just move like this. They just sort of go do. They move like regular pawns would.
They move like the way people move minis on D&D maps.
I guarantee that
everyone I've ever
know,
played with,
but they did that.
How do you move it? Nobody ever just. Very rarely do people ever take up their mini and set it down. They usually go.
I know. They go.
Everybody does that. Everybody does that.
It's fun. It's fun.
I mean, again, I kind of. I don't know if this is the direction they're going for, but I kind of dig it. They're really trying to actually create this true virtual tabletop experience.
That's the thing that I was calling it based on your description, Derek. Truly virtual tabletop.
I will tell you,
so actually a tabletop.
The best game designers and the best game developers basically use the tools to their best of the abilities and make detriments features. And in this case, a detriment is programming all these animations and all these. It's a lot. It's thousands and tens, hundreds of thousands of hours of work. But putting in a 3D mini that can be done very quickly, and you can outsource these too very quickly. It's like, okay, I can easily go and say, okay, I need a 3D mini model of every monster in the monster manual with color for Unreal 5. Go, and they can totally outsource that and get every single one. They don't even need to do that in house, and that's very easy to do.
I like Save Versus just came in with a $5 super chat. What's up, Save Versus? And they said, I'm expecting a Mercer effect. The fireballs in Bob's games they're just so much better than yours.
Oh, that's totally gonna happen. Of course,
do you even care?
Happen.
Like you show up to some GM's game and you get like the lame, just generic AOE template, and you're like, Where's the exploding fire effect? Come
Yeah,
on,
That was
man.
a mythic rare that Bob drew from the animations. Gotcha.
Okay, yeah. If you didn't learn this from Gotcha, learn it from gambling. This is well known. These are very well known sociological effects of like people wanting to have more than other people and being able to. Not only that, you have to have the ability not only to have them but to show them off.
Right.
Of course.
Oh, and this is what a great way to flex.
Ta-da! Look, I'm showing it off.
Right. And look, I'm not gonna lie. Okay. My group and I, we have an extensive collection. My buddy that we play at his house, his entire basement is basically dedicated. Aaron Smith, who you know, Stephen.
Right.
His entire basement is basically our gaming den. And the walls are lined with shelves of all the pre-painted miniatures that we have bought over the years, including our rares. And you bet your ass, some of those minis are kind of showed off on display. And it's a great way to be like,
yeah, of course.
Look at how good I feel about my collection, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the even things in World of Warcraft, if you go to a player's page, you can see their PC 3D with their, and you can set what weapons they're holding so that you can really show off. I would not be surprised. That's a good idea. Is World of Warcraft does this where you can go to any character and see all their achievements, see their stats, see who they are. It shows a cool 3D animation. You can change your weapons, change their gear, whatever you want. Do the same thing. It's like, here's my character page, and you can start showing off your characters. In fact, I guarantee they're going to do that. If they're going to have gotchas in there, you need a method to show them off. And you can't just show it off to your own people. You got to show it off to everybody, because that's also how you get people to buy it. Because if other people say, hey, where did you get that really cool flaming sword from? And then you click on it and it's like, you can buy it here for $9.99. You can get this flaming sword. It's like, okay. I mean, there's going to be a lot of cross links and cross promotions for microtransactions now. Okay. All right. Here comes the next one. By the way, the last question was pretty close. It was about 59% said no, that they don't want animations, and only 40% said yes. So that's about 50-50. But of course, it's a little vague the way I put it, which is sort of on purpose. But
I agree with Rules Larry. He said I would not want to participate in any VTT survey because they are just trying to figure out what they want to charge for. And absolutely. What do people want? Okay, that's what we'll charge for.
I mean, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't participate in the survey, though.
Well,
maybe you
again,
want to help them figure out what to charge for.
Right. I mean, I stress this again, I'm a bit of a liberal anarchist in some heart, but at the same time, I also think that a company trying to figure out what products they should make so that their customers can buy them from them and be happy with the purchase. I don't
see a big problem with helping them figure out what to charge for. Like, are they just going to randomly put something in that they're not sure that people want?
ML FOMO will be the reason that, I mean, all you have to do is release a limited edition Red Dragon mini that is only available until whatever, October 31st, or the Halloween Dragon mini, which is only available till November 1st, and people will go out of their minds to buy it. So
do different limited edition things. This is the Drizzt redeemed one, and here's Baldur's Gate 3 Companions minis as a crossover from Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh, you do crossovers?
Only for the release of the Baldur's Gate 3 Definitive Edition.
I actually don't know how to answer this question, Stephen. I actually don't know how to answer this
question. Are you okay
with
microtransactions in your D&D VTT? Do you want microtransactions?
My brain is telling me no, but my heart is telling me yes.
Because that's the thing. Everyone's like, I don't want it.
Steven, I don't want it. If you asked, do you want microtransactions in it? I would say no. But you said, are you okay with it?
Because they're going to do it.
I'm okay with it.
They're going to do it.
I know they're going to do it.
Yeah, they're doing it. They're doing it.
I'm okay with it, but I don't actively want it.
Well, we are in the Mark. We are in the minority because 80% people say no.
But they're lying to themselves. I guarantee
they are.
You're all lying. You're all lying to yourselves. You're all lying.
You're not lying to yourselves. You're not okay with it. You know why you.
There is a fantastic Penny Arcade for those of you who don't know Penny Arcade. Yes. And there is a fantastic comic where Gabe and Tycho are like, League of Legends is so good. And he's like, dude, it's so good. And he's like, and it's so incredible. He's like, dude, it's so incredible. And then the other character's like, and it's so free. And the other character goes, unbelievably free. And then there's kind of like a comic panel where they're just not saying anything. He goes, so how much money have you spent? He goes, I have spent $10,000. Right? Like that, like
exactly right.
That is exactly it. Like, you know,
look,
that's
look,
the insidious truth.
That is, look, okay. What I mean by you're lying is that even if you buy a 99-cent transaction, that counts. And I know a lot of people.
I'm not even talking about that though, Steven.
Yeah, okay.
Being okay with it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to buy it, and buying
let me
it doesn't
rephrase
mean that
this
you're
poll.
okay with it. Right?
People were most people were not okay with it, but let me rephrase the poll. Then I'll rephrase
to
it.
like if it had microtransactions, would you buy it?
Wait, I want to be clear about something. Everybody who voted no, you've never bought a skin in any game.
Exactly.
You've never bought a collector's virtual edition because it came with. If you play Hearthstone, you just have the basic generic card backs. I just want to be clear about this.
I just want to be clear about the question that Steven asked, which was not whether anyone ever bought microtransactions.
Mark is being really annoying.
On the other side,
on Marvel Snap, I've spent a lot of money on Marvel Snap, let me tell you. You don't need to spend anything on that.
I don't buy skins, and I play free to play usually when I'm playing games for the added challenge of not having the extra whatever power creep. When I'm playing things that do have microtransactions, although I try not to play too many that do.
You can tell that your chat is made up of Pathfinder players because none of them have ever spent money on anything. So apparently no one there has ever used
obviously not.
Bought a download or
the thing is, I'm not crazy. I don't buy a lot, but you know what? Like, I spend a lot of time on Snap, and for $10 per month, you can get quite a bit, and it does add to the game. They give you rare stuff. It's fun. And to me, I'm like, you know what? I like this game. I like the developers. I think they do a very good job with it. And quite frankly, I'm okay with giving them $10 because first I get a lot out of it and I want to support them. So to me, it's not I'm spending $10 and getting something. It's I'm spending $10. I get a lot of value for my $10. I get a lot of game. It's fun, and I like them. I like the people. So to me, it's okay.
Right.
And you too can do the same thing if you like me and Mark, and you want us to stay in business. Then I suggest you go to battlesy.com and buy something because
it's 25% off sale.
25% off sale. That's right.
And
the best adventure. 25% off.
Can own this ridiculously thick volume that is that you might be confused and think that this is an entirely new, comprehensive D20 based 1 to 20 campaign full of D20 system full of 27 classes and 57 ancestries. But you would be mistaken. This is an adventure for levels 1 to 10. 1 to 11.
You technically get to 11, right?
You get to 11. It's 1 to 10, really.
But it's 1 to 10, really.
It's 1 to 10, yeah.
And it is, look, 3 ribbons, people.
So, Steven, I'm going to give you credit where you were due. When you rephrased it to the question that you thought you were asking before, it's almost the exact same percentage as before. So I thought that we would get a different amount of people with the different phrasing, but
I am honestly
it's exactly
shocked.
The same. The numbers are identical.
I am so shocked. I am honestly because what is a microtransaction in real life? It's buying miniatures. It's buying a piezo flip mat. It's buying a Dwarven Forge. It's buying cool little templates made of acetate or something that you can use to model a fireball. That is, I don't know about you people, but we have tons of that stuff.
I think people usually consider a physical flip mat to not be a microtransaction.
The numbers are statistically insignificantly different between those two polls.
But if I'm only using a virtual VTT, then having a physical component, Now, Chris makes a great point. He says, because when I buy a miniature, I have it forever. barring in mind some disaster, not until the server is just shut down. And there is validity to that. And I remember the same people making that argument in the early 2000s when they were talking about Magic the Gathering online and how they would never buy virtual cards because it's only a matter of time before the servers get shut down. Well, guess what?
So this is a different question, though.
Yeah, but wait,
right?
I got to follow up
This
on
is
that.
virtual goods versus physical goods.
Right,
But the
these are
difference between a
virtual goods.
microtransaction and a transaction is the difference between buying the Foundry module for your adventure that you're running. I would say that's not a microtransaction.
Wait, are you ready?
And okay, Stephen, go ahead.
Here's the joke. The joke is on everyone. So it came out to approximately 20%, 22 to 20% of the people said they would buy something. That is insanely high because for video games, the actual number is about 3%. It can go 3 to 5.
3% of players ever spend money.
Yeah, ever spend money.
Yeah.
So 20% is
Dolphins.
Wait. What's the number?
ridiculously 3.
3% of
3%.
players on average of a
And
free-to-play game will pay
right,
money.
and outright, I'm getting to the whales. And whales are something like they're very small. Whales can be, it depends on the percentage, but it's like 0.05. It's extremely small, but the whales buy everything. And they can spend
In video
hundreds.
games, yes.
They can spend hundreds, not thousands per month.
In tabletop, though, a higher percentage usually will dolphin.
Right. It can be up to 5%. Jimmy, you're not wrong. It can be anywhere from 1 to 5. So I
But
say
either
3.
way, 20%
The point
is
20% is still good.
20% is
from Watching's
insanely
side,
good.
right?
That's
And-
actually
and-
Watching should be
and-
watching this and be like, yes.
Right. And can we be honest with you? This is an audience that is probably more anti-microtransaction
Yes.
than the standard typical world international
Yeah, I think
audience.
that's true. I
Yes.
think that's true, especially since Steven named the video in a way that was fairly provocative. That probably means a subset of people who are watching it that might be different than than just your national average of people who might be looking at this VTT. Also,
Yeah.
we missed a super chat from Rage the Promised End that
Oh.
said they would have no way for a secondary currency. It would have to be a full cash shop.
Oh, that's true because of the new laws in there's new laws in the EU and stuff that prevent you allowing to do secondary currencies. So there's a lot because of they're not wrong. Depends on the country though, but there's new laws. There's anti-gambling laws. There's anti-video game laws, things like that don't allow the shenanigans that's been going on in the last couple of years.
To keep the pedantry going, I see Rick here says that he feels like I'm moving the goalpost a little bit, which is not my intention. He said that saying that miniatures or flip mats are the same as microtransactions is not accurate at all. So what makes something a microtransaction? Is it
That's
a dollar?
good question.
Is it
Other
a dollar
people in
threshold?
chat
It
told
is,
me
yeah.
that,
A microtransaction is literally any extra money that you have to spend that will give you something that you can't get in the base game that either gives you an advantage mentally, in my opinion, like I have cooler colors than you, or
Right.
gamification wise that literally buys you power, which they don't do in this game. And if they did, D&D would break and no one would play it, so I don't think they're going to do
but
it.
buying skins is like the classic
That's a
example of a
microtransaction.
microtransaction.
Yes.
And that doesn't do anything for you, right?
I'm
No.
trying to look
the
up
game.
definitions on it because some people in the chat were telling me that buying the Foundry premium module for Abomination Vaults or something like that was a microtransaction. I think that it clearly is not.
No, that's a separate
Clearly
product.
is not.
That's a completely separate
so
product.
looking at the definition of a microtransaction, at least from Merriam-Webster, which is the dictionary that Paizo uses for standard, it's not the only dictionary around. There are a few definitions. An online transaction involving a small amount of currency. So that automatically makes going to your store and buying a flip mat not a microtransaction because of the fact that it's not online and also it's not that small of an amount of
Those are called
currency.
impulse buys.
Then it says, especially when the transaction is made within a video game as to purchase exclusive content or a competitive advantage. And then it gives 3 citations on
That's
on
an old, yeah, that's an old because
Okay.
skins.
So
and
if I go to Foundry,
hats yeah, I can't remember the hats. That you guys know what I'm talking about. What's the
is that
Steam game?
Half-Life?
No, the other one, the other Half-Life game, the
Portal?
one. No, the other one. They only have 3 games. Chad, help me out. I can't remember. It's
Team
on top of my-
Fortress.
Team Fortress. Yeah, it's the Team Fortress 2. Team Fortress 2 is based off the hat economy, and they have infinite skins, and there's no advantage to any of them.
Yeah.
It doesn't do a damn thing. They make
All right,
millions on that.
Again, I want to be clear here. So there's plenty of people who do this on Drive Through RPG. They sell battle mats for your VTT. They're 99 cents.
Yeah.
That's
Alex.
a microtransaction.
Good one, ML. Good one. Yeah, what was that? Sorry.
I am looking on Wikipedia, and apparently microtransactions are generally defined to involve micropayments, which have a vastly wide variety of values. PayPal defines it as 5 British pounds or less. Visa defines it as 20 Australian dollars or
Got it.
less.
So the problem that people have is when
Nobody
it's
knows
cheap.
what it is.
If it's expensive, then they're okay with it.
There you go.
Rules Lawyer. What they're going to do is they are going to push. They're going to push as high as they can until they start seeing a dropout. But they're kind of going with the Games Workshop model, right? The Games Workshop model realized we could sell $100 of product to to 100,000 people or 1 million people, or we could sell $25,000 of products to like a quarter as much, and we'd rather do that.
By the way, Ronald, you should come on. We haven't had you on the show in years. You should come on one.
Ronald's busy.
Ronald is too busy running his whole.
Busy during our slot.
He's got a whole. He's got his whole empire going on over there.
Yeah, he's busy with the Rules Lawyer empire.
I know the Rules Lawyer empire, which is completely blown up. And
by the way,
if I ever record, you and I are the same ilk, Derik. I cannot record pre-recorded videos. I'm way better live. Much like real life.
Well, also it just takes so many hours.
Oh, it's too long. I don't have time.
Pre-recorded video.
I don't have time for pre-recorded videos.
If we did that, we would get out so many fewer books.
I wouldn't get out, instead of getting out 34 books this year, which is I think what we did, I would only get out like 28. So
yeah,
that would be a significant disadvantage to lose those other 6 books, because of the 28, 24 of them would be.
No, I think we actually put out.
Of the 28, 24 of them that we would get out would be Year of Monsters. So we wouldn't get out, like the 6 that we would lose would be big books if we lost 6 books.
By the way,
doing pre-recorded
6.
I do want to highlight that Knights of Last Call had their month of August, in which we did a 7 session long Root the RPG campaign. We talked about Fantasy Age, Fabula Ultima, Fate Accelerated, Call of Cthulhu, and Scum and Villainy, and we had our absolute worst month ever.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah,
it's also August. August is notoriously a bad month.
But, I mean, the fact of the matter is, look, man, Pathfinder 2 sells better than all that, and 5th edition D&D sells better than all that in terms of videos and views.
Yeah.
But my word of advice, unless you're Ben Milton, don't not talk about D&D or Pathfinder 2 if you're going to make a YouTube channel and you want to do well.
That's true.
I mean, we actually got a decent number of views talking about which ones did we do? Knave and Shadow Dark.
Yeah, because
it wasn't as many as some of the ones where we were talking about Baldur's Gate 3 or other topics.
But even then,
pretty good.
Those people have their very rabid fan base. So.
Jimmy Repine said he hit it on the head. He said, I think WotC's going to go the Fortnite path, and you're going to make more money from lots of smaller purchases and digital. But yeah, that is, if you're going to emulate anything, it's
Jimmy. You're right. Yeah,
you're 100% right, because Fortnite makes an absolute fortune.
Right.
They make $1 billion, $1 billion a month.
As much as I'm over here talking about Games Workshop, what they make in a year is like a rounding error for some of these companies, these digital. Yeah.
Oh, what they make in 1 week is more than WotC makes in a year. Like seriously.
I've got 4 words for you, Steven.
Yeah.
Critical Role coloring book.
There you go.
There we have
I mean, we
them.
saw-
I
we
can look
saw
it up.
that
I
on
want me to
the-
look it up. That's already
No,
up.
no,
List of
no, no.
sales.
That was the classic clip that we had on our
yeah.
Patreon. It's when you and Professor DM are going over the sales figures, and you both come to the realization at the same time that the Critical Role coloring book
Right.
outsold both of your companies combined.
Oh yeah,
And it was-
yeah. It's like, well, I kept mentioning like worse and worse things. Not worse, but like more and
I
more
think Critical
outrageous
Role coloring
things.
book could be a great thing.
You know what? That's what I said. Outrageous, and not worse,
Yeah.
because it could be good. Outrageous, and his face throughout the video kept getting like,
Oh yeah, he just kept getting angrier and angrier.
even though I think he was shocked. It was just dismay of the
Yeah,
human
yeah.
race.
Right? Yeah, disgust. Yeah, exactly. I love it.
Just disgust, pure disgust.
So we got a super chat.
A very good
Yeah,
one.
Glade Riven says Paddle Zoo play as a kaiju when? Well, we
April Fool's
have-
is coming
we
up.
have feats to grow to gargantuan size for dragon ancestry.
Dragons can get
So-
pretty kaiju.
Gargantuan is the largest size category in Pathfinder 2. So if you want a really gigantic dragon, you've got that. If you want something that's literally the size of kaiju in Pathfinder, aka this is not even a creature anymore, this is an environment that does environmental hazards, that could be pretty rough to play as. But we have a very wild and bizarre thing we're gonna do on April Fools that Steven came up with.
I
So
came
don't
up with
worry, we do some
something.
weird stuff.
That
Mark,
is
why
going to
did,
be awesome.
Why did you guys drop Colossal from Pathfinder 2?
There just wasn't a need for it, basically.
Well,
We
on top
would've-
of that, wait. You didn't drop it because gargantuan is 20
Can
or
go
larger.
Yes, that's why
Aha!
there was no need
I
for it.
outruled you, Derek.
Okay, but then why
You
do
didn't
you need
outruled
why do
Derik,
you need a
just said the
distinction
same-
between
Ah.
gargantuan and huge?
You actually don't. So like right near the release of the book, I proposed a model where there were only 3 sizes, which is
Small,
one
medium, large.
square,
Oh,
one square, less than a square, more than a square.
Mm.
That like the other designers really liked it, but they're like, yeah, we can't do it by this point. We've made diagrams and other things. It's too
Got it,
late.
got
it. Too late.
For the first play test. But they were like, that actually is good because you can use the scaling things that we did
Yeah.
for gargantuan to get rid of huge and gargantuan as well. But ultimately, just like by the time it's bigger than huge or gargantuan or one of those, there's a wide range of things of sizes that you need. And already PF1 that had Colossal had a Colossal Plus where
The Colossal Plus,
certain
yeah.
creatures were bigger than that.
Yeah.
It wasn't
So-
literally called Colossal Plus like in the Epic
No.
level handbook from 3.5, but it did exist. It was called
Yes.
like Massive.
So wait a second. Wait. So real quick, if you guys have any more questions about the VTT, let us know. Because I'm sure Derik has racquetball or something coming up.
Yeah,
so.
Actually, my racquetball buddy is in the midst of his indoor basketball league, and so he's been canceling
Oh.
on me left and right.
Oh,
so
there
There you
you
go.
go.
No
There you go.
racquetball. I do have to go to Manhattan though and pick up my son, so
Well,
I
that'll
do have
probably
to
be
end a
soon.
little while. But so
we'll
now
go
is the
through
time.
super chats that we have.
Yes, we'll go through the
Tiger
super-
Eyes is wondering, is Battle Zoo microtransactions under some definition for the content?
Correct.
Well, the super
No.
chat you just made
Yes.
to ask that question is probably a microtransaction, right? I think it is. It's a small
Could
money
be.
transaction that is being used to do something, right? But Battle Zoo's content is not a microtransaction because
No.
you're buying the main content. You're not looking at some of these other definitions that are more technical that I'm finding. It's generally saying that you're getting either a mechanical advantage with the microtransaction or a skin or some other kind of cosmetic change are the but that not everyone agrees with that either. I read the Merriam-Webster one before. When you're buying the main actual thing itself, like a Battle Zoo PDF or a Foundry module for an adventure or a physical flip mat in real life that you're holding in your hand, I would say those aren't microtransactions because they are an actual transaction rather than a free-to-play where you then pay for microtransactions once you get in there.
So exactly, no one has used the 25% off. I mean, I guess everyone has Jewel of the Indigo Isles, so I guess no one wants it. But today only, get all of our stuff. Includes print, by the way.
How
That's
low is the price of the print version of it with the 25% off? at this point.
I don't know. I can't do math.
Okay, well, I will look at it. I'll just go and
it's
pretend
a
that I'm
deal.
gonna buy it.
It's a good
and
deal.
See what it gives me as the discount and how ridiculous it is. So I've gone on to the page and it is not showing me the 25% off innately.
You have to add it. Yeah, you add it.
I probably have to add it. So, but it looks like it would be $60 for
a 430-page book that weighs 3.5 pounds.
Enormous thing that has more art than any adventure I've ever seen. Because
I don't care what definition. I don't care what definition you use. There's no way you can call that.
That is not a microtransaction.
That's not a microtransaction. And not only that, it's funny because we added all the maps into the Foundry, and then when you load the whole thing, because it has a icon, it has the words of the map, and people were like, "Oh my god, that is so many maps!" And I was like, we go up to Z, okay, and in fact, we were going to go back around to AA, but I kind of cheated it and figured out ways that I didn't have to actually put letters in it because I couldn't decide if I should go AA and then BB and CC when we went past Z, or we should do AA, AB, AC. And it was driving me crazy. Plus 2 letters was taking up a lot of space on the maps. So I was like, screw it, we'll go up to Z, and I will just have maps that just don't have numbers or letters in them. So, but yeah, we have too many maps.
So I did see someone mentioning that they kickstarted it before. It's too bad because they could have gotten 25% off now.
Wrong.
Don't worry. The Kickstarter price was ridiculously.
Kickstarter price was like 30.
Low.
It was like $40 or $50 at most.
It was like a nonsensically low amount because Steven didn't realize at the time how much it was going to.
And your shipping was nothing comparatively to what it is now, because shipping, since we did the shipping at the very beginning of COVID, so the shipping has gone up like 5-6 times since then. So anyone who got a Kickstarter still got a way better deal than anything you would get now. Trust me. I'm very aware of that. It's never been, you'll basically hopefully never be lower on the site, even with sales, than the Kickstarter was ever. And that's on purpose because I want the Kickstarter people to always get a good deal. So anyhow,
were there any other questions on that survey, Steven?
Yeah, if there's so let me go through the rest of them. There was
I'm curious.
I have let's see.
We have the access to that. So
yeah, since we have the access to that, let's go.
Let's see. They wanted to know if you wanted to have the ability to spawn pawns and monsters on the fly, which sounds kind of ridiculous because shouldn't you be able to do that?
Wait, how could you play the game if you can't?
No, because they're saying if maybe it's only all pre-made, predefined content
at this point.
And they're saying like, do you want the ability to like, I'm going to add a monster?
Yes. The other thing was
they were talking about designing it or spawning. I guess
spawning. They said prop. So I don't know what a prop is. I don't know if a prop counts as a monster, if that counts as something else. So prop.
Like spawning to me sounds like just means adding it to the map. And if you didn't have the ability to add something to the map,
no, you had to because they said one of the encounters you fought goblins and the goblins weren't even on the map. And they had to add them. So that's obviously, I don't know what
if something
means.
can create spawn, like a shadow or something,
I don't know.
and kill someone?
Well, the other thing is, should you be able to copy and paste minis? I'm like, yes, please. Like, that is a big pain in the neck if you can't copy and paste.
Yeah, you have to go into a compendium and find the mini again every time.
Yes, that's how they have it now.
I can't believe that they're even asking these questions.
Well, another one was
maybe I actually don't disagree with the idea that they're using this as a one-stop shop to figure out what to charge for. I think they're using it to figure out which features they don't have to implement so they can save developer hours.
100%.
They didn't want it.
Do they want player inventory management? Which is something that's always a pain. That is a big pain in any system. The ability to see everyone's stats at once and character sheets as the GM, the way it does in Baldur's Gate 3, like they all pop up and you can like click on them for more info as opposed to going into each individual one. Prompting for saves in the game as opposed to you saying them manually. So if a fireball goes off, it says everyone roll reflex. it just says it, or
Yeah,
or does it automatically.
Foundry has a module for that. I can't remember what it's called.
The Foundry is something for everything.
Roll for me, please, or something.
The ability to have emotes. Should they have emotes in the chat? Should they have? Let's see what else. Cinematic camera. So in other words, the camera will go in dynamically and cinematically.
And pan in to show you the fireball from a cool angle.
Exactly, yes. I wanted to know that. Everything else I think we had here, like motion. Doors, drawing tools.
Wait, did they want it? They asked if people wanted to have doors or not?
Well, doors in the sense that dynamic
like
doors. Yeah, like ones. You click, they open, whether sound goes through them, light, effects, things like that. Right. They also had auto calculations and how much auto calculation you wanted in the game.
So after it rolled 3d6 for your spell, whether it adds them up for you or not, or whether you need to look at the dice and then determine.
Yeah.
This is kind of it's related to that concept. And I want to ask Mark because
we had a super chat, by the way, but yeah.
Oh, well, please answer the super
I'll
chat.
do the super chat, then I'm going to come back to Derik's question. So Eric S. Riley says, if barrier to entry for GMs to create content is too high on this D&D VTT, is that going to be a reason not to use it? Or will it just mean that they lean more on pre-mades?
Both.
I think a lot of people already lean very heavily on pre-mades.
It's going to be both. It's going to be both.
Yeah. I think that it will... when you realize maybe they even give you your option to make your own, and then you realize how drab it'll look and how uninspired and how it won't have all the cool effects and and you're like, oh, or I could go spend however much money and I've got this awesome cool looking thing and it's got all this really cool environments and cool textures. Yeah.
People do both. I mean, it's like the real thing. I mean, I like to run, even though ironically, which is weird, I create content and for Battlezoo, I actually like to run pre-made adventures because I don't have time to write my own, and also, well, I know most of the authors and I know it feels like I'm actually running my friends' games because half the authors I know at this point, and I trust them and know the writing styles. So if I'm running something and I know that Vanessa wrote it, or I don't know, Linda or someone, or Ron, I'm like, I know what to expect because I know the writing, so I'm happy to run it. So there you go.
Yep.
All right, Mark.
So what you got, Derik?
All right, my question is, philosophically, I don't have an answer for this for myself, but something that we've talked about on our streams before, Aaron and I in particular, is something we call it the tactile nature of the role-playing game experience. And how things like one of the reasons we like Advantage is because physically picking up in 5th edition is because picking up 2 dice and rolling both dice and getting to pick the higher, it has a mathematical effect, but it also feels, I think, fundamentally different. VTTs, and especially we've got some high-level Pathfinder 2 games happening right now in Knights of the Last Call Patreon campaign, and you'll see these damage rolls. And the damage expression is, 4 weapon dice damage plus this bonus plus an elemental bonus plus greater brilliant plus greater, and it just, this huge massive calculation, 4 different damage types, 7 different dice is being, added together. And then boom, it says 72. And you're like, okay, that's cool. We didn't have to add that up. But do you think that the act of rolling your dice and adding them up is an important part of the RPG experience? Or is the fact that if you could somehow eliminate dice entirely and just have people get, the complete randomly generated number, would that be in a superior game mechanic? Or is the sort of kludgy, slow process of rolling the dice, adding them up, do you think that's important to the game? Maybe not the system, but like the experience.
Yes.
I think it depends on the person. Many people really, really love their tactile dice.
Let me tell you
something. On the other hand, the fact that things have to be in a human calculable number of dice is what leads to so many different decisions about math that people think are like some kind of like 20-dimensional chess to like nerf cantrips, or we had a stream about this, right? It was like, no, it's very clear that they're trying to keep the damage as close to identical as possible while changing the way that the dice are done, and that there's just a lot of constraints by dice. So if you could just randomly shoot out a number that was from whatever range you want, you would actually have a game with better math slightly, but it would be impossible for humans to run it.
Mhm.
So I think enough people like doing it with dice that it's going to feel really off if you make it so that it can't be done with dice.
Well,
essentially.
there's a few things. First, Baldur's Gate 3 has dice rolling, and it only has d20s. They had the perfect balance. All the other, actually, that's not true. They do add, like, if you have a d20 and you get like a d6 or d4, those are all added in. But they don't roll all the dice, but they roll just enough. And let me tell you, I hardly ever skip those animations because I just love to see it. And every review, people mention that. People are like, it's got the freaking dice, and it's
funny.
Awesome.
It's funny that you mention that because, again, we a lot of people in Nice Last Call are playing Pathfinder 2 and other games, but Pathfinder 2 has a lot of dice. And it annoys me because I want speed. I want things to be quick. And people will go, oh, I love playing Pathfinder 2 on Foundry. I love that it adds up all those dice for us. I wouldn't do it any other way. But they insist on playing with dice so nice. They insist that they have some sort of 3D model of their dice rolling across the screen, even though they have no intention of adding up all of those dice themselves.
Doesn't matter. That is literally the jackpot. The slot machine effect at action, buddy. That is the slot machine effect, 100%. People want that little moment of ooh, and waiting for it. It's much more fun to have the dice and seeing it roll and seeing it go on that 19.
Like having
and
the
then
gotcha animation of like opening a pack.
It's so
or something
good. Yeah, why do you
important.
think they have? Why do you think they have the animations of opening a pack in Magic Arena?
Oh yeah, when you buy a Magic Arena,
Of course.
And then when you get it, and by the way, when you flip over a mythic rare, it's like,
yeah, exactly. Why do you think they have that? Because that is part of the experience, baby.
Oh yeah. By the way, the same people who like dice so nuts are the same people who are like, when I roll a 20, I want there to be little circles of particle effects.
And explosions on my neck. It's like 20. You better believe I want that. So by the way, there was one other thing that people were controversial about. You cannot change the color of your dice on the D&D VTT. That is a big freaking deal, man, because they're not only going to have the ability to change the color, but you better believe they're going to have, you can buy special dice. You can buy exploding dice. You can buy space dice and mystic dice and water dice and fire dice. And
they will for sure have all that.
Oh God, of course. Why wouldn't you?
That's just them. Like,
that's just making money.
So there were two super chats.
We missed two.
I think they're both from GM Scott.
They are.
So first is, can you think of a reason why Paizo would not create APs for the D&D VTT?
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Because they're working under Orc now. They're not going to follow whatever license WotC puts into that.
Second,
there's like a 0% chance that
not only is there a 0% chance. Not only that, on top of that, there could be a thing in there saying, they own a certain percent, or even 0.1% of anything you create, and they're going to do that. 0 chance of them doing that. So there, you will not see anything. More importantly, they just announced that they have a big. They're already working with Foundry. Just announced a big. But that co-brand, but not license. I don't know what you would call it. Working relationship with Foundry. So they're going all in on Foundry, and why not? Because Foundry and Pathfinder are like peanut butter and chocolate.
And GM Scott also asked, will the D&D VTT integrate digital-enabled physical dice like Foundry, or is that not on their radar? I think they have like little dice on there. Is that what that means?
No, there's actual physical dice about, that you can roll.
Bluetooth dice.
Yeah.
Oh, like physical dice that then go to Bluetooth.
Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they?
I mean, there's no reason not to, I guess, but we don't know if they have it yet.
Because then you buy the physical dice, which are really expensive because they're Bluetooth enabled, and then that links to those are just generic, right? Because they're just like the black or white or whatever, virtual Bluetooth dice. But then that links to your virtual account, and then you could buy your dice skins to put onto your virtual dice.
By the way, William Brandis paid $25 just for Mark to close his blinds. If you're going to pay $25 for someone to close their blinds, watch this, baby. Oh, yeah, look at that.
Steven's going to close his blinds. Oh, he opened his blinds.
It's right on my face. How annoying is that? Baby, look at that. I can't even see a blind.
To be clear, William Brandis is one of the 3 members of Knights of Last Call. That
I
is
know.
Mhm.
That is Mr. Aaron Smith.
Help! Look
There
at
you
this!
go.
Look at this! Look how cool I look! Look, I got like
Look, with
a
my blind closed,
Look at that.
my face looks less pale too.
look at that! I look so cool with my blinds open. And this is a time of year. It's right at this time. It's twice a year where the sun will set just perfectly so that at this time of day I'm completely blinded by the light.
Aaron said, "This is why you don't have any friends, Stephen."
Only at Origins though. He has all the
No,
friends.
not at Origins, at Gen
only at
Con.
Gen Con.
No, he has friends at Gen Con, but not
Right.
at Origins.
Yeah,
That's
right.
what I was saying.
At Origins, he had no friends.
I had you.
That's all right. No, yeah, you got to hug. You played more games with my crew than I did.
That's true because you got drunk.
You were there for all the games. You were there for the cartographer's game.
Yes,
because that was your copy.
Oh, I bought
you were
it.
there. You were there for the Avatar game. You were there for the Oath game. You were there for the Fiasco game, and I was not. So,
and you missed it. That Fiasco game, legendary game.
There you go.
Well,
So, Steven, you said you
the
had to
drink.
leave at 5 for
A little after. I have a little more time.
Oh, okay, great.
so, long story short, like, how do we feel about these? I mean, again, it's early, but I'm cautious. I know that the chat really shit on it, but again, it does sound like a horrible VTT, but it sounds like it might be something interesting and different in its own category.
Well,
that it's
right.
trying to do
It
something
could be.
different. And that to me,
like Derik,
is kind of exciting.
are you surprised that the chat that clicked on a video that said its name of the video was the OneD&D VTT had a semi-public playtest, and it sounds really bad.
I'm Derik.
Are
from
you
Knights of the
surprised
Last
that the
Call.
people who clicked on that?
I'm used to people.
are
Well,
negative
no, because it
I'm
does
used to people
sound
hating
bad.
things.
Wait, it does sound bad as a VTT because so many VTTs. You see, if you're comparing it to
Something
any
else.
other,
That's what it is.
Right? That's the point. Is that as a VTT, it is not going to replace them because it doesn't have all these basic things that other VTTs have and that you need. So strangely, maybe it shouldn't even be called the VTT. Maybe it should be called like a TST, a table TTS,
tabletop simulator.
Tabletop simulator.
Right. But I'm saying maybe because that's what it really sounds like, which isn't a bad thing. But here's the problem, okay? Is that if you are going to market this as a VTT, it can fail because people are going to expect certain things in their VTT, which it is not giving them, like grids and drawing tools and fog of war and all these things that are considered basic functionality. But if you call it something like a tabletop simulator, then you can get away with anything and say, oh, we don't have it because it's not a VTT.
Yeah, Jim Scott called it a VGT, a virtual game table, which I don't know like that one.
VGT.
And yeah, it's like Brandis says, Dungeons and Dragons emulator, and I think that is kind of an interesting because even if you go back to that initial video, right, the one that came out with the big D&D 1 announcement, the really cringy one that was highly produced and had a bunch of people, but they're all like, the game remains the same. They were like, it's just like playing at your table, except you're going to be doing it online, and it'll be just like before, where you guys were at your cool coffee shops and you were playing D&D and you were going on adventures. Wow!
I mean, the one with the game remains the same was where they were just also making fun of everybody who ever played D&D in any other.
To be fair, every aspect of that commercial, Mark, or that trailer was accurate. Grapple rules in 3rd edition were stupid. Nobody understood THACO, and early miniatures were left something to be desired. So I'm just saying.
So by the way, some people are saying that I am assuming a lot, and then maybe they are going to end up putting all the VTT stuff in there. That is completely true. But,
Jimmy's been saying that the entire episode.
Yeah, but here's the thing about the VTT stuff. It's not that simple to put in some of these things. And they have the list of things that have to be put into this is a mile long. And grid system versus non-grid system, and building that grid system is going to be a big pain. It is going to be a big pain because now they have to support, because you have to decide, am I supporting grid, am I supporting freeform, or am I supporting both? And if I'm supporting both, then everyone has to always submit for the lowest common denominator, which is going to be grid, and then everyone who makes modules is going to have to use grids when they set everything up, and then they can be turned off. So this is not, oh, we did just add it. No, this is a huge thing. It is hard to implement. I disagree with you. It is very hard to implement because it requires from the back end 2 systems, and 2 systems is a nightmare in the long term. It is a big freaking deal.
Just as a point of comparison, I literally just read this. So on Tailspire, right, which is this 3D thing that we had talked about, this 3D kind of integrated tabletop space, they have a section on their site called the roadmap, and they have 4 sections: planned, in progress, recently shipped, and not for a very long time.
Really?
And the thing that is under not for a very long time is hexes or different types of grid options.
Thank you. I'll take my apology.
There's a reason why that's not for a very long time. Is because Steven knows what is going to take a while to roll out.
Yes, I don't mean to be annoying, but I've been in game development for 35 years. I know these games. I know these systems. I know this is going on with the Xbox S right now because, in fact, Baldur's Gate 3, because they have a lower version of Xbox and a higher version. Well, guess what? You always have to program for the lower version. Every coder hates it. And in Gamescom, they were having meetings with Microsoft begging them to let them no longer have to support both versions. And in fact, Baldur's Gate 3 was not coming out for Xbox because they cannot get split screen to work on the Xbox S. They just couldn't get it to work, and they are still trying to. And for the first time ever, because they also saw how good the reviews are, Microsoft said, it's okay, the 2 versions can be different. And now everyone's it's opened up the huge can of worms, because now everyone's going to say, wait a second, if you said it can be different from them, then it should be different for us too. And now it's coming out for the Xbox hopefully this year as opposed to next year. So
every coder hates these 5 easy tips.
These 5 tips.
Yeah, no, seriously. No, but the point is, I'm not trying to be annoying. I'm not trying to be decisive. I'm really not. But I'm thinking about it from the back end of the development point of view, is that I'm coming up with a module, and I have to build it on a grid-based system if that's what they want. If they want grids, then it has to be lowest common denominator, which would be grid over freeform, because freeform I can put things anywhere. But if it's grid, I can't have 2 characters right on top of each other. You literally can't. You can't have a group of characters near each other. They have to be spread out because of a grid. So how do you do that? You have to. Yeah.
There's also something to be said, and I think Tiger Rice had a super chat as well, but he said, guys, call it what it is, a glorified video game, much like Celestia, where you can create your own dungeons and PCs and NPCs. It's just prettier. And it could be, you're absolutely right, it could be, and it could be a foundry. But the other thing to consider when you guys are thinking about these VTT options is, what if Dungeons and Dragons says people already have Roll20, which we own, right? Or basically, right? D&D bought Roll20, right?
What? No.
D&D, Roll20 did not buy. Sorry. What did D&D buy?
D&D Beyond.
D&D bought D&D
They bought D&D Beyond. Sorry.
From
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. They bought D&D Beyond. But they said they wanted to buy. That was what we talked about.
Yes, they did.
Wanted to buy Roll20, and Roll20 said no. So maybe D&D is saying, look, people are invested in Roll20. They're invested in Foundry. And people who want that experience are going to have that experience. And why try to compete with those people? They tried to. They tried to just buy them out. And maybe they said, well, you know what? I don't think we're going to try to compete in that space. What if they are legitimately trying to bring something new to the experience? Mm-hmm. Because, I think that at least would be them giving something new to the product offering.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. It's actually caused me to rethink this VTT, and I'm now looking at it with different eyes, even from before we started this. No, because I didn't think of it, but you're right, because it's funny, Derik, because I do use the tabletop simulator quite a bit, and I always see people with D&D games and modules and maps in there like crazy. I've never used it for D&D or Pathfinder, but I'm kind of curious now. I mean, I use it for a lot of board games, and I use it for
So let me tell you this, because maybe this is if this audience doesn't understand this, then maybe it's completely wrong. Games like Root, right, which is a board game, another game that we played, Stephen, at Origins.
Yes, a lot of fun.
The closest game of Root that has ever existed
in history.
Ever existed in history. We played Root, a board game. I've played Gloomhaven, okay, on Tabletop Simulator. Both of these games, Root and Gloomhaven, have a actual game made for them. You know, where you can go online, it has matchmaking, and it's all automatic, and you know, like the Gloomhaven thing is just an actual video game. You know, the Gloomhaven game that you could buy from Steam, the Root board game that you can buy from Steam. I prefer to play the tabletop, and so for me, there is a part where it says, "Hey, this game isn't a, you know, programmatic virtual tabletop." Like the idea of a game where it's like, "Yep, this just lets you roll virtual dice, and it won't even add them up for you. You have to do, like, that is Tabletop Simulator. Like there is no calculator." And I like it. I don't know, because that's what gaming feels like to me. So,
well, I actually agree with you.
They're trying to figure out what people like, and that's why they did the survey, right? They want to see what features people want and people don't want.
Well, I think they want it to be a video game. I think they want it to be, like you said.
I don't know. I don't even know about that.
I do. They do. They want it to be something.
I don't see it as being. It doesn't sound like the features are making it more of a video game. It sounds like the features are lending themselves towards more of like a animation heavy, like table experience.
Yeah, but we didn't even talk about
tons of microtransactions.
We didn't even talk about automated, video. We didn't talk the video game aspects of, like, okay, are you going to be able to play with strangers, or is there going to be a way for you to play with bots?
Well, what do you know about those from the playtest? Is it known?
It's zero from the playtest. None of that was talked about at all, because they're far away from that. They got to get the system to work first. And I, in my mind, their order of operations would be, first, they got to get the damn thing to work. Okay, that's the first thing. Second would be the whole microtransactions ability to get custom content in there, whether it's theirs or someone else's. Theirs first, obviously, and then eventually, the same way iPhone, when they started out. The iPhone store came out much later after the iPhone came out. Originally, you could only, if people remember this, you could only get their apps and only their official apps. And then they said, hey, guess what? After that was all like straightened out, you can buy any app, and we just take 30%. And the entire world has been changed ever since because of that little thing. The next thing they're going to probably then do is work on bots, like playable, NPCs, PCs that can play with you, so you don't have to get 2 people or 3 people together. You can play by yourself and just have 3 other, characters. No different than Baldur's Gate 3, because, by the way, people like that can't be done. And these are the same people all playing Baldur's Gate 3, which, by the way, half your party is not controlled by you if you don't want it to be. So there you go. I mean, you can control your party, where you just play all 4 characters, just like Baldur's Gate 3, by the way, and that they have pre-written dungeons, pre-written adventures, just like World of Warcraft, just like Neverwinter Nights, just like Baldur's Gate, just like a million other of these games. It can be done.
GMs, what if you could be the game master in this D&D VTT, and all of your players were bots instead? Wouldn't that be better?
Yeah, they're gonna have that too, baby.
They would never go off the rails.
That's called Dungeon Keeper, by the way. They already have a game for that, where you kill everyone. You ever played Dungeon Keeper? It's one of my favorite games, Dungeon Keeper.
Steven, why does anything that we talk about always lead to you being talking like killing all the players and the characters? It just seems like a thing.
I didn't say
game
it.
Where you built your little dungeon, and like the little imps would run around and dig out the dungeon.
Yes, and then the adventures come in. You got to kill them all.
Yeah, that was a fantastic game.
Fantastic game.
One of my favorite things about that game is you could like possess one of your monsters and it
Yes.
would switch to a first person
Yes.
point of view and you could like see the dungeon through the eyes of your monster.
Yeah.
And I remember that there was like the ultimate monster was like this kind of like demon thing, but they were a real pain in the ass because they wanted their own food source, their own
Yes.
water source, their own thing.
Yes.
And I used to, every time one of them would spawn, I would feed it to my sacrificial pit because I didn't even want to bother.
You don't want to
trying
deal with it.
I didn't want to deal with his management upkeep.
That, by the way, was a game that was ruined because Dungeon Keeper 1 came out. It was great. Dungeon Keeper 2 came out, even better. Dungeon Keeper 3 came out, completely bombed because it was a microtransaction nightmare. And so no one played it.
Someone's saying I'm lying because I don't play video games. To be absolutely clear, Dungeon Keeper came out in like 96 or something.
I mean, that game is ancient beyond ancient, to say the least.
It released June 1997, in which case a high school Derik would still be playing video games.
Much newer than Clash of the Titans.
Honestly, the game that marked the end of me playing video games was Diablo 3. It came out, I played it the launch day, and I said, you know what, this is too much. I don't know what's going on. And I turned it off, and I honestly have never really played a video game since Diablo 3.
Really?
And I didn't even play Diablo 3. I played it for like one day on launch, which I understand, full of bugs, problems, you should have given it another shot. No, I don't care. But whatever reason, I was so disappointed by the experience, I stepped away from video games. And then when I stepped away from video games, it just 1 week turned into 1 month, turned into one, and I just like, I don't really miss it,
All right. Well, I wish I could go another 3-4 hours, but this is it's one of our best shows. Everyone was on their A+ game, and this we got a lot more we could have even talked about. I thought we would run out of steam, but we kept going. Man, there's a lot on this.
Well, there's a lot of there's a lot of passions, and I think there's also a desire by the community. People want to see D&D fail. They want to see this blow up in their face. There's still like a strong revenge sort of fantasy, right, where this game collapses and D&D is shuttered for all time. And
I don't think that's gonna happen, though.
No, I don't think it will either. But
I think that their microtransaction, the gotchas are gonna be wildly successful, and people are gonna do those gotchas and get the mythic rare red dragon.
I guarantee this is going to be, and this is for another time, it's going to end up being a VTT that's not quite D&D, that's not quite a video game. It's going to be something of its own. It's going to get its own identity, and it's going to make $1 billion a year in microtransactions. And then there's going to be the people who play. It's going to break into 2 groups. My prediction: we have do you play online or do you play in person?
You know what it'll be like? Dating myself here. Great line from Back to the Future Part 2. Marty McFly goes to the future, and then he goes into the Cafe 80s then he goes over and he sees there's 2 kids who are playing Wild Gunman. And
who's one of the kids?
Elijah Wood.
That's correct.
And you know who the other one is?
Oh, I do. No, I forgot.
I do not remember the actor's name. It's like Marziano or Marciano.
Mm-hmm.
It's the kid who played the boy from Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the 2 boys are sitting there, and it's like, it's a NES zapper game, and he goes, and he picks up the gun, and
actually,
Wild Gunman, and he goes, boom, 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 boom. He goes, I was a crack shot at this. And he kills them all, and they look at him and they said, you have to use your hands? That's like a baby's game.
You're right.
And so like, this is the same. It's like it's the same thing. Like, wait, you have to play D&D. You play D&D with books,
exactly.
And plastic dice?
No,
like,
see, I think that it's not going to get quite to that because there's going to be the crowd that are like, okay, we're the VTT crowd. And then they're like, oh, you guys are the Critical Role people, where you're sitting there and you're doing something with dice and stuff. Right. You're like Critical Role. That'll be that's what they will think of. Right. The people who aren't using the virtual tabletop.
Cut to 5 years from now. If you're playing online, people will just. It's like how everything is called Xerox is a brand, but we call it that, right? Like it's like 5 years from now. It's like, oh, you're playing D&D. That means you're playing online on a virtual table. Oh, you're playing. If you see a bunch of people sitting around a table and they're playing some sort of role playing game, people will say that, oh, they're critical rolling.
Yeah, exactly. But you guys are like the Critical Role people.
Oh my god, that would
that's
be
what you're doing.
That would be that sounds about right, actually.
Yeah, that's what I think. Okay.
It's like, what do you guys do? Critical Rolling. It's like, oh, critical rolling. What are you critical rolling? Pathfinder version 8.
I mean, look, it's no different than the classic version where we've all done this, right? Your family asks you, hey, what did you do last week? And you say, oh, I was playing some D&D. When you were, in fact, not playing D&D.
Of course not.
You were playing Pathfinder, or you were playing, Dune 2D20, right? You just call it D&D, right?
I know. That's what I have to do. I say, I'm playing Pathfinder, and they look at me and say, it's like D&D. They're
It's
like,
like D&D.
oh.
Oh, that's really cool. Right.
My family knows what Pathfinder is.
All right, you have an excuse, Mark. You have a valid excuse.
Well, my friends now know, too. In fact,
yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair. Like, my parents got, like, the Pathfinder 2e core rulebook because they knew
did they get their shipment yet?
And they put it in their little bookshelf. They did not get their stuff from the Kickstarter yet.
Oh, well. They will. Don't worry.
So my dad looked at mine that you sent to me, and he got very excited about it. But he's a bit not in the half of people who've gotten there.
I'll look them up
so far.
if it's the same list.
No, it's fine. You don't have to prioritize them because
Okay.
he's already seen mine. Prioritize the people who don't have any of their copies. Give
It's
him
going.
last. That's what he deserves.
Going, man. Takes a while. It's thousands and thousands and thousands of books, and it's a nightmare. I'm glad I'm not in fulfillment. It's like it's like that is a full-time job, fulfillment, and then some. Now I see why it takes so long when I get my Kickstarters. I'm like, why don't I get it right away? And then I look and I'm like, oh, now I know why, because it takes freaking forever. I gotta hand pack every single one of these, and these are not Amazon employees. This is not like some massive warehouse with 500,000 people. So,
and on the topic of kids saying like, oh yeah, they're probably critical rolling, like my little brother like went to a wedding, and one of his best friends who plays games with him works at Riot. And so like they were trying to explain to like the young nephew, who I guess was like 10 or something like that, what he was doing. And so the friend was like, oh yeah, do you know League of Legends? And the 10-year-old was like, oh yeah, it's that game really old people play.
wow.
That's
That's funny, because I have the opposite story of where my son, this was years ago when League of Legends just came out, and their kids wouldn't go to bed and they were playing on their iPhone, and I said, all right guys, time to go to sleep, turn off the League of Legends. And they looked at me and goes, how do you know what League of Legends is? So I guess it goes full circle.
Yeah. And then he was like, what about Valorant? It's like, that's that other game old people play.
Oh my god, really?
Yep.
Valorant is one of the main guys is named Pathfinder.
So what games do kids play?
I don't know what game that kid played. I only heard the story from my brother who was at the wedding, but it was
I know what games.
those.
I know games what kid they play. It's called TikTok.
My nephew.
That's all they do.
Everyone is saying Roblox.
Speak of microtransactions. Let me introduce you to Robux. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Which is the only thing that my nephews, who are now 17 and 15, have wanted from me for birthdays and Christmases for like the last 10 years is Robux.
Oh, right. Yeah. Roblox. Because everyone loves Roblox.
Well, no, because Robux is like the virtual currency.
Yes, I know. It's in Roblox.
Roblox.
Yeah.
And by the way, why do they want those? So that they can go into what is essentially child casinos.
Yes. Yes.
And gamble for stupid pixelated skins out of loot boxes. Somehow this is legal. I don't know how.
I learned everything I needed to know about Roblox from the Simpsons episode where they did like an organized crime scheme using Roblox to try to get money for the school to get its new auditorium.
Oh my god, that's a good idea. Oh my god, I gotta go. Well,
all right.
Thank you everyone for joining us. I guess we got to do this every week. This is a big topic, and don't forget, today only 25% off anything here.
You can get this and not pay $80.
Yeah, it's $80, and it's going to be. I think it's in Barnes and Nobles now. By the way, I got to go to.
That's sweet. Yeah. If I see it, if I see it up there, I'll take a picture and.
My parents looked in Barnes and Noble because I told them that, and they said that they didn't see it yet. So I said, well, we don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah, it takes a while. Takes a while. Should be coming in any day now because it's been in the warehouse for about a month now, so we should be getting there. I'll meet with Diamond and ask them, where's my books? Where are they showing up?
Well, thank you for the conversation, everybody, and hopefully
bye, everyone.
Have a great night.
Take care.